Chapter 421 An Unexpected Surprise. Fujin looked at his palm. The flying thunder god seal appeared on it. He extended his arm towards the door and touched it with his palm. In an instant, a mark of the flying thunder god seal was imprinted on the door. Fujin's eyes glowed as he observed the seals on his door. A weird expression appeared on his face as he saw several dozen seals hidden on his door. Fujin wondered, 78 seals just on the back side of a door. Exactly how many seals did I inscribe on my house? 5,000, 10,000, more? Fujin thought for a few seconds before giving up. Considering the crazy number of seals he inscribed, he hadn't bothered keeping account. In fact, he couldn't even recall every seal he inscribed on the house. It was impossible for anyone to do so unless they had perfect memory. He muttered to himself, Meh. It doesn't matter. The more the merrier. If I don't know, then it is impossible for anyone else to know. Fortunately, I had the foresight to ensure that the seals could act autonomously to respond to various kinds of threats, apart from a few seals that I would need to manage actively. The rest will respond by themselves. I'll let anyone stupid enough to attack this house figure out how many seals are here. Fujin focused his attention on the flying thunder god seal. After a minute, he observed, this seal is slightly different from other seals. I can control it to change its position slightly. Under Fujin's control, the mark moved a few inches upwards on the door before stopping. Fujin analyzed. That said, it's the other factor that makes this seal very unique, even though I am good at making seals. Any grandmaster can remove my seals given enough time. However, this seal is permanent. Unless I voluntarily remove the seal, it will stay forever. Of course, it is possible that Tobirama and Minato know of ways to remove the seal, but Hiruzen didn't include them in the scroll so that the method won't get leaked. It is also possible that Hiruzen and Danzo have come up with means to remove this seal considering that they had decades to study it. Regardless, once I mark any enemy with this seal, that ninja will be as good as dead, even if he is far stronger than me. I can just run away and keep sending shadow clones to kill him. Worse, I can have my clones prepare deadly jutsus before teleporting. I can even send several clones at the same time. If the enemy still somehow survives, I can keep hiding and send shadow clones at random times to catch my enemy off guard. There is just no way to survive unless they can cut off the body part that was marked. Perhaps only someone as perverse as Obito might have a chance. Anyway, it's time to test it. Fujin disappeared from his spot and appeared at several spots inside his room. The last place he appeared in was the basement, where he sat down at the center and thought, I created 48 markings inside my house, now time to see if I can sense them all. Fujin opened the scroll Hiruzen had given him and once again went through it. After a few minutes, he closed the scroll and sat in a meditative position. Using the methods in the scroll, he tried applying the sensing technique mentioned in the scroll. Within an instant, Fujin sensed 48 markings. He could clearly feel the markings he had left inside his house. Fujin's eyes snapped open. Shock could be seen within them. He wondered, what the hell, I sensed them on my first try, and I could sense all 48 markings so clearly. Fujin fell into deep thought. A couple of minutes later, he got up and left his house. He left 2 markings 50 meters from his house and another 2 at 100 meters before returning to his basement and trying to sense them. Once again, he managed to sense them without any effort. He left his house and left more markings on trees at various distances from his house, the farthest being 2 kilometers from his house. Once again, he returned to his basement and tried sensing them. This time, he only managed to sense around half the markings. Fujin opened his eyes and pondered, it looks like I can sense all the markings I make within a distance of 1.5 kilometers from me, any farther and I can't sense them any longer. Still, this is nuts. From the notes in the scroll, it is almost impossible to detect the markings on the first try. In fact, most who are considered talented in space-time ninjutsu only manage to detect it after a few hundred tries. Only the likes of Minato and Tobirama probably sense them more quickly. As for detecting up to 1 kilometer range, that's even more absurd. Fujin stayed in his spot in disbelief for a few moments. Soon, a smile appeared on his face. He muttered, now this is an unexpected surprise. I never thought that my talent in space-time ninjutsu would be this damn good. At least in terms of sensing the markings, it is likely that my talent is better than both Minato and Tobirama. But Fujin's mind suddenly became quiet. His expression became very serious, while he had always ignored an important aspect because he was too weak to do anything about it. His outrageous talent made him think. He couldn't help but wonder, why is my talent in space-time ninjutsu so absurd? I'm not originally from this world and have transmigrated here. The body I transmigrated in didn't have any remarkable talent to speak of. Though my talent in the wind element is very high too, it only became apparent after years of intense training. I couldn't be that lucky that the random body I transmigrated to not only had exceptional talent in wind manipulation but also had the best talent in space-time ninjutsu. Could I, or is it because I have transmigrated here that I am talented in space-time ninjutsu? After all, transmigrating in this world is far more advanced than merely teleporting from one place to another in this world. So, could the process of transmogrification have given me remarkable talent in this aspect? Fujin let out a sigh and looked above. Though he was in his basement, the look in his eyes was as if he was seeing the vast space far beyond that world. He questioned, transmogrification? I was always very curious about how I transmigrated. Is it just a law of nature? Does everyone do so, or only some lucky souls get transmigrated? Or could there be some entity who transmigrated me here? If so, what is the purpose of doing that? After all, I was just an ordinary guy. What benefit would someone get from transmigrating me into what is most likely an alternate universe? Or is it just someone bored wanting some amusement? Fujin had several questions. Unfortunately, he would receive no answers. He shook his head and thought, leave it. There is no way I can figure out this mystery as I am now, if I ever reach the level of Hagoromo. I can explore how reincarnation works. After all, Hagoromo's sons have been reincarnating for centuries. As for transmogrification in a different universe, that should be way more advanced than that. I doubt even the strongest Otsutsuki has any knowledge of this. I can only keep getting stronger and hope that someday I am able to solve these mysteries. A smile appeared on Fujin's face as he thought, I just hope I don't end up dead before reaching such a level. Well, whatever, that's too far away. I first need to master the Flying Thunder God Jutsu and take advantage of my knowledge to gain the most out of upcoming wars. For now, I will have to spend some time increasing the range up to where I can detect the markings. From the notes, it seems like Tobirama's range wasn't very impressive. It was probably why he failed to escape. However, Minato managed to increase his range to a ridiculous level. In the Fourth Great Ninja War, he was able to teleport from the battlefield to Konoha while taking the truth-seeking balls with him. I wonder if Sage Mode helps in increasing the range, if I can mark several locations on the entire planet and sense them at will. Then killing me would become impossible. After all, unlike Tobirama and Minato, I have no intention of sacrificing myself. I will work on extending the range later. The 1 kilometer range is good enough. I'll directly begin working on the third step. It'll be wonderful if I can get it down in one try as well. Hey, Chapter 422, The First Victim. Fujin went through the scroll once again to revise the third step of learning the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. This was the most critical step, and also the step where things could go horribly wrong. After all, traveling through space-time could be very dangerous if done incorrectly. As such, he didn't dare to take any unneeded risks. After going through the scroll, Fujin rolled it back and shut his eyes. He began sensing the markings within his range. He focused on the marking on the pillar in front of him. Within a few seconds, Fujin's mind became very calm. Not a single trace of thought remained. The other markings that he could sense also disappeared from his mind. He could only sense himself and the marking in front of him. Once he reached this state, he subconsciously tried using the method in the scroll to travel through space-time and teleport to the marking. Unfortunately, he wasn't about to get 2 surprises in a row. After 5 minutes, Fujin opened his mind and let out a sigh. He muttered, no wonder this step is said to be the hardest. I didn't have any success at all. Fujin analyzed the third step for a few minutes. He concluded, the scroll did say that it takes a lot of time and practice to learn how to travel through space-time. I suppose I'll just have to be patient and keep trying it. If I don't succeed after a long time, I can only depend on the inferior version that utilizes the concepts of the reverse summoning jutsu. So I won't be able to use it in battle. Having a method of traveling over long distances in an instant and a better method of escaping from a battlefield will still be very handy, but hopefully things shouldn't be that bad. After all, my talent in sensing the markings is ridiculously high. It would be strange if I didn't have any talent in moving through space-time. 15 shadow clones popped around Fujin. Each flickered and sat in front of one of the markings. Fujin and his 15 clones all closed their eyes and began practicing. They quickly became engrossed in training and lost track of the time. While Fujin trained the Flying Thunder God Jutsu and Naruto trained the Projectile Control Jutsu, Hirizen opened a scroll. As he read through it, his expression became grave. After some time, he closed the scroll and kept it back on his desk. He thought, Akatsuki captured Han, the five-tails Jinwekurick of Igawatga, and they somehow managed to extract the tailed beast perfectly and stored it inside some statue. Onoki did a good job of hiding information. If not for Itochi, we would have completely been in the dark. Worse, Orochimaru tried attacking Itochi for his Sharingan. Thankfully he failed and has left the organization. However, Itochi is afraid that he might target Sasuke or anyone else who awakens Sharingan and has asked me to ensure their safety, not to mention Akatsuki plans on targeting all the tailed beasts, so they will eventually come for Naruto. Hiruzen massaged his forehead as he sighed. So many rank S ninjas. What a headache. What do they even want to do with such a force? And does their leader really have the fabled Rinnegan, or is it something else? Hiruzen analyzed for a bit but couldn't think of anything. Akatsuki was a strange organization. It was the only force in the world made solely of rank S ninjas. As such, they didn't need to compete for territory like the villagers. However, their actions confused Hiruzen. Hiruzen decided, there is no point in speculating, I'll just have to wait for more intel. I'll also need to ensure that Naruto has proper protection when he leaves the village. Thankfully, it seems like the Nine Tails will be one of their last targets, so I will be able to learn more about them as they clash with other villages and understand what to do with them. Hiruzen looked towards the ceiling and instruct Monkey and Wolf to take turns to monitor and protect Uzumaki Naruto. From this moment onwards, Naruto will have two Amber looking after him at any point. However, don't interfere with his training under Fujin. One of Hiruzen's Ambu guards disappeared from the room. Hiruzen thought, it's unfortunate that I can't discuss this with Shikoku. He will easily figure out that Itachi isn't a traitor and instead is spying on Akatsuki, though he should already have his guesses. He has no way to confirm them. Regardless, I should pass some of this intel to Kakashi somehow. I should also pass the same intel to Fujin. He has already clashed with them twice. I'm afraid that those are just the start. If Akatsuki has a large ambition, Fujin might end up fighting against them several times. He should stay on guard against Akatsuki. They no longer have any ninja that isn't rank S. Even though Hiruzen couldn't take Shikoku's opinion, he quickly made the appropriate countermeasures. Around a week later, he secretly informed Kakashi about the fact that Akatsuki was targeting Jinchukuris and that Naruto was on their radar and asked him to keep it a secret. A week after that, he called Fujin to his office and informed him about the fact that Akatsuki had kidnapped Hon and asked him to be more on guard against Akatsuki. Of course, he was asked to keep the intel to himself as well. Fujin was quite surprised by the information. After he left Hiruzen's office, he wondered, Akatsuki captured their first victim so quickly, and that too Hon? Fujin was confused. Suddenly he recalled something. He analyzed. Wait a minute, if I recall correctly, while extracting Shikoku from Gera, I recall someone making a comment that the process was smoother when Orochimaru was a part of the Akatsuki. Does that mean that Orochimaru is still a part of Akatsuki? Fujin thought for a bit before agreeing with his conclusion. He thought, Orochimaru should have been a part of the process while extracting the first-tailed beast from a Jinwekurick. He will probably leave the Akatsuki soon now. I wonder if he will still find Rasa and make a deal to attack Konoha together. As for Akatsuki, they should stay silent for some time. From what I remember, Gara was the third Jinwekurick they captured. The second should be that girl from Taki. But there are still a few years before they make a move on her. I wonder why they needed such a long time. Does extracting a tailed beast and absorbing it into that statue have some conditions or requirements? If there are any, it should be because Nagato isn't strong enough. After all, Madara was able to absorb all 9 tailed beasts in one go, though Nagato is ridiculously strong. He is still very lacking when compared to the likes of Hashirama and Madara. Oh well, it doesn't matter what Orochimaru does next, or what Akatsuki's issue is. I need to return to training. I have a feeling that it won't be too long before I have a breakthrough in the third step. Though it wouldn't be ready for battle use any time soon. I guess I should also talk with Naruto once his school starts tomorrow, and he won't be able to come to my training grounds to practice. Fujin walked towards the training ground and replaced his shadow clone. Some distance away from him, Naruto was completely focused on training. Naruto grabbed a wooden shuriken, threw it at a tree and immediately weaved hand signs. He shouted, projectile control jutsu. Immediately, wind began flowing around the shuriken. It changed its track slightly and missed the tree. Naruto groaned as it didn't hit the tree next to it and kept practicing. Fujin analyzed. Not bad. His progress is faster with this jutsu. Still, having to weave hand signs for this jutsu makes it too slow. Should I advise him on how to reduce and later eliminate the hand seals? Fujin thought for a bit and decided, no, his chakra control is abysmal. To reduce the number of hand seals, you need to manipulate chakra inside your body appropriately. I doubt Naruto will be able to do that anytime soon, though weaving hand signs is tedious. Naruto is very innovative and unpredictable when it comes to using ninjutsu. I'll let him try and resolve this himself. Trying to interfere too much in his training would have a negative impact instead. Fujin walked out of the shadows and approached him. He said, Naruto, that's enough training for today. Chapter 423 Progress. Naruto, who was about to throw a shuriken, stopped and turned around. He asked why. Fujin said, it's already evening. The academy starts tomorrow. You need to prepare for it also. Since you have to attend the academy, you won't be able to train with me from tomorrow. Naruto became a bit dejected. He asked, can't I skip the academy? I learnt a lot more from you than from the academy in the past 5 years, you know. Fujin chuckled and said, what you learn in the academy is important as well. Ninjutsu isn't everything. Even more so if you want to become the Hokage. Naruto nodded unwillingly and said, I'll go to the academy. Fujin smiled and said, besides, just because you won't be able to train with me doesn't mean that you shouldn't train. Keep working on the projectile control jutsu, along with leaf concentration and leaf cutting exercises. Your leaf concentration has improved rapidly in the last 2 weeks. Keep up that speed. As for leaf cutting, you can carry a few leaves to a classroom and do that exercise there in your free time or if a lecture becomes too boring. As for the projectile control jutsu, you are already able to slightly change the directions of flying objects. Try using it to prank and you'll get plenty of practice for it. Naruto got several ideas from Fujin's words. He looked at Fujin with stars in his eyes. It was as if Fujin had become his idol. He said, ideas to train in the classroom. Plus being able to use these jutsus to prank. You are the best, Fujin. Fujin smiled and said, of course, just because you can't train with me all the time doesn't mean you shouldn't come visit me. Feel free to come when you want more supplies or some help in training, or just to hang around and relax if you want. Naruto smiled and said, I will. Fujin nodded and took out a seal from a pocket. He handed it to Naruto and said, in the past couple of months, you have trained with dedication. I am impressed, Naruto. This is a gift for you. Naruto grabbed the seal and inspected it. He asked curiously, what is this? Fujin said, it's a training seal I created for you. Place it on your chest. Naruto was intrigued. He followed Fujin's instructions while asking, training seal? What is a training seal? Fujin answered, as its name says, it is a seal that helps you in training your body. By activating the seal, you can increase the pressure on your body and the resistance you face. So moving around will become very difficult. It is an excellent way to train our body. The seal I gave you can apply a maximum pressure of 50 kilograms, so don't dare activate it to 100. You'll hurt yourself if you do that. Naruto's eye sparkled. He said, that sounds great. How do I use it? Fujin answered, just close your eyes and feel the seal on your chest. Use the confrontation hand seal to concentrate on your chakra and insert your chakra into the seal. You will be able to increase or decrease the pressure. For now, try to activate 2% pressure. Naruto followed Fujin's instructions. In a few seconds, he managed to increase the pressure to 2. He tried moving and jumping around and said, it's true, walking and jumping have become difficult. Fujin said, yes. It is a result of the seal. Trying to move, or better yet, train while using this seal, will make the training even more difficult for you. As a result, this seal will help you train your body. It will help you increase your speed and power. You can use it while walking, training, doing normal daily activities, or even when you sit in classrooms. However, only increase it gradually. If you hurt yourself by mindlessly increasing the pressure, I'll take the seal away. Also, don't leave the seal on while sleeping or sparring, and leave the seal in your home whenever you leave the village in the future for missions. Naruto nodded and said, understood, but why should I not use the seal during sparring? Won't it help me fight better when I deactivate the seal? Fujin shook his head and explained, if you keep the seal activated while sparring, then your body's instincts will get confused and will adjust to when you are under a lot of pressure. When you suddenly deactivate the seal, your body will need some time to readjust to normal pressure and resistance. Besides, if you use the seal during a fight, someone like me will kill you before you even have a chance to deactivate the seal and adjust your body. The same also applies when you are out of the village and can be sneak attacked anytime. Even I don't dare to keep my training seal activated when I am outside the village or sparring with someone. Naruto nodded and said, "All right, thank you, Fujin." The two talked for some more time before Naruto left. Fujin saw him leaving as he thought, will he really listen to warnings? Oh well, it doesn't matter much. He should listen to not controlling sharp objects with projectile control jutsu. Though he is known to prank a lot, there isn't any instance of his pranks actually harming anyone. As for the training seal, I purposefully made something that applies less pressure. Even if he raises it to 100% in order to push himself, he won't suffer any serious injuries. With Kurama's chakra, it'll heal in no time. All that will happen is that he will have to rest for some time. As for during the missions, any Junin would be able to see it activated at first glance and make him deactivate him. Anyway, a few basic wind jutsus, training to improve wind manipulation, better chakra control, a slightly stronger body, and some sparring practice. This is all the help I'll give Naruto before he graduates, though it is lackluster when compared to what he could have achieved had I taught him the multi-shadow clone jutsu now and spammed it for a year. This should still improve his basics considerably. More importantly, this improvement shouldn't have much of an impact on major events in the future, so I don't need to worry about the future changing too drastically. Regardless, I'm looking forward to seeing how Naruto progresses after getting a good foundation. His basics in the original story were just too lacking. The only thing he had going for him was numerical superiority, due to having a large chakra reserve and the multi-shadow clone jutsu. If he shows some promise with the wind release, I'll teach him the infinite breakthrough jutsu at some point in the future and teach him how to supercharge it. I also wonder if his improved chakra control will help him learn the clone jutsu within the next 10 months. If he does so and doesn't get the scroll, I will have to teach him the multi-shadow clone jutsu as a gift for graduating. Oh well, there is still some time for that. Time to get back to my training. Fujin returned to his training. The last couple of months of training had brought him great results in the 3 areas that he was focusing on. His biggest improvement was obviously in the Flying Thunder God. He had completed the first 2 steps and had a feeling that he would experience some breakthrough in the last step soon. His wind domain was also developing rapidly. Fujin felt that it was good enough to deal with normal Junins. Even elite Junins could suffer heavily if they didn't have any prior information. However, it was the 3rd area where he would reach the critical point the earliest. A new year in the academy started, and life in Konoha went as normal. Fujin continued training in solitude. Hiruzen didn't disturb him. Danzo wanted to make some moves, but Fujin's monotonous lifestyle didn't give him any opportunity to do so, apart from Naruto occasionally visiting him. No one bothered Fujin. One day, while he was in between his deadly physical training routine, a smile appeared on Fujin's face. Excitement could be seen in his eyes. He stopped training and deactivated his training seal. He closed his eyes and focused his mind on his body. A second later, his chakra flared. However, it wasn't what he normally did. Instead, the chakra had infused into his entire body. It even infused into his vital organs. Fujin smiled and thought, the insane training plan has finally given the result I wanted. To train so hard that chakra infuses into your body naturally. What a crazy training plan. Chapter 424 A favor, Fujin thought. Though this is good, I'll have to keep up this training plan for a long time to ensure that this is permanent, and to keep increasing the amount of chakra I infuse in my body. If I don't, the amount of chakra I can infuse into my body will slowly decrease. Over a few years, my body will lose this ability. Anyway, time to test it. Fujin clenched his fist and punched the ground as hard as he could. A loud sound was heard throughout the training ground. Cracks spread on the ground like a spider for a dozen meters from the spot where the fist landed. Fujin analyzed. Not bad, it's definitely much stronger than my normal punch. No ninja with a normal body would want to be on the receiving end of this, even with iron skin jutsu. They will feel the pain and might suffer some internal damage. Now, Fujin concentrated his chakra on his fist. He was using the Senju Taijutsu style alongside Gai's strong fist style. Once again, he punched the ground with all his might at the same spot. This time, the impact of the blow could be felt throughout the training ground. The birds, that were brave enough to still live in the trees in that training ground, immediately began flying away due to the tremors. A few people, who were walking close to the training ground, turned their heads due to the sound that was heard. Fujin, who was the source of this commotion, was standing in a hole in the ground that had collapsed due to his punch. For several dozen meters, the ground was a wreck. The cracks had opened wide and several rocks were thrown out of the ground. Fujin himself was covered in dust. However, a wide grin could be seen on his face. Fujin wiped the dirt on his face off and analyzed. Great, in terms of destructive power, this isn't too far away from Tsunade's level. However, in terms of usability, it is still far behind. The time I take to concentrate my chakra on my fist reduces its effectiveness in a high-speed battle. My opponents will easily sense it and take evasive actions. That said, with my wind jutsus, it isn't critical for me to improve this aspect. I'll be able to shred my opponents far faster instead of trying to obliterate them with a punch or kick. I can also use my wind domain to slow down my enemy and attack them with this if wind attacks don't work for some reason. Regardless, this is very good. Fujin returned home to have a shower. Due to the intense training and being covered in dust, his body was quite dirty. After a small break, he immediately went to find Guy. As usual, Guy was training his 3 students. They had just finished an intense training session when Fujin showed up. Immediately, Neji and Tenten's expression became dark. Tenten cursed, "Great, we have just rested for 10 minutes and this monster has already shown up. Why did he arrive so early today?" A Guy smiled on seeing Fujin and instructed, "I and Fujin will spar for now. Until we are done, you 3 have to run 80 rounds around the training field on your arms." Tenten wanted to cry. Unfortunately, her tears had dried out long ago. Since Fujin regularly showed up to spar with Guy decided to have his students train while he sparred with Fujin. After all, there wasn't much for them to learn from their fight because the 3 genins couldn't even follow their movements. As such, Guy gave them very difficult training tasks to do while he and Fujin sparred. The tasks were so difficult that none of them had even completed them once. To make matters worse, Guy continuously kept increasing the difficulty of the training tasks little by little on a daily basis to push them more, and, if either of the 3 genins dared to slack off, Guy would lead them to train in a way that made them embarrassed, like following Guy on the streets of Konoha. While all 4 of them walked on their arms unwillingly, they left to train. Guy looked at Fujin and said, "You are early today." Fujin smiled and said, "It's a special occasion. Let's fight. No warm-up today." Guy was surprised. He began unleashing his chakra and fusing it with his body while exclaiming, "All right, let the power of youth explode." Guy's words got stuck in his mouth as he noticed Fujin doing the same. A grin appeared on his face as he said, "No wonder you are so impatient. I can feel the excitement of an intense spar." Guy disappeared from his spot and attacked Fujin, who disappeared as well. As usual, the 2 engaged in an extremely high-speed fight. The only difference was they were even faster this time. The ground, which already had scars from their previous spars, was changed beyond recognition. 2 hours later, both were breathing heavily, especially Fujin, who looked completely out of breath. He muttered, "Damn, using this continuously is very exhausting." Kai replied, "You have just learnt it. Managing to keep it up for 2 hours is very impressive. More than chakra reserves, this method puts a strain on the body. That is why you are so exhausted. In time, not only will your stamina improve, but you'll also learn to better manage it by easing on the chakra depending on the battle situation." Fujin nodded. He could sense that his chakra reserves hadn't decreased much, but his body was just too tired. He looked at Guy and analyzed. "Even though I managed to infuse chakra into my body, the amount of chakra I can infuse is far less than him. In addition, his taijutsu is far more refined than mine. It looks like forcing him into using 8 inner gates would be impossible unless I use wind jutsus in the spore. Even then, he might just accept defeat and not use the inner gates. After all, this is merely a spar." Seeing Fujin silent, Guy said, "Just increase the intensity of your training. If you can't, then increase the time you train maintaining your current intensity. You will be able to maintain this state for far longer." Fujin nodded. He looked at Guy and said, "I will, but I have a favor to ask." Guy asked, "What is it?" Fujin directly asked, "I want to learn the 8 inner gates technique. Can you teach me that?" Guy was surprised by Fujin's directness. He thought, even Kakashi wasn't this direct. He became quiet and began thinking. Fujin didn't disturb him. He thought, this request is no doubt huge. For one, this jutsu is a forbidden jutsu. Secondly, it is his trump card. If someone came to me and asked me to teach them my wind domain, there is no way I would agree. I would either directly say no, or make some excuses depending on who asks. That said, Guy isn't the only one who knows about the 8 inner gates, so there will be other means of getting my hands on this technique. It's just that I'll not have the benefit of someone who has learnt this technique guiding me, making it slightly more difficult to learn this jutsu. Fujin observed Guy and waited for his decision. After a couple of minutes, Guy said, "I can teach you. However, the 8 inner gates is a very dangerous technique. It has a lot of risks." Fujin nodded and said, I know opening the 8th gate would result in death. Even the earlier gates put a lot of stress on the body. If it is used recklessly, it could cause irreversible injuries or even cripple the user. Guy was surprised. He said, it looks like you did the research before asking me. Fujin nodded and said, it is a forbidden technique. I won't mess around with it. Guy smiled and said, all right, I'll teach you this technique. But before you begin, I want to know how much you want to progress in it. Do you want to focus entirely on it? Or do you just want it as a hidden card and use it to gain an advantage? Fujin sighed in relief internally and thought, good, if he hadn't agreed, I would have had to pester Hirizen again. Not to mention, learning a forbidden jutsu alone has a lot of risks. Fujin answered, I can't focus entirely on it. My main combat method still revolves around wind jutsus. I want to learn this so that I can use it in instances where my opponent is somehow immune to my wind jutsus and other skills, forcing me to rely just on Tai jutsu. Guy frowned and said, I can't think of any such opponent. Still, it's a shame that you don't want to focus on this entirely. With your willingness to work hard, you would have progressed a long way through it. Fujin smiled and said, I might still go a long way, Guy. I'll decide how much to focus on it after learning how to open a few gates. Can we start now? Chapter 425 8 Inner Gates. Guy replied, yes, I'll first explain the basics. How much do you know about the inner gates? Tell me everything. Fujin thought for a bit and replied, I don't know much apart from the basics. The 8 inner gates are limiters placed on the human body. The 8 inner gates technique breaks through these limiters. My information is too vague. I'll proceed assuming that I know nothing about it, and just follow your advice. Though Fujin recalled more details from his previous life, he didn't say more because he couldn't find in-depth information on the 8 inner gates technique anywhere. After looking through the library, he had only found a few scrolls that had some vague information. In addition, Fujin wasn't sure whether all the information from his previous life would be true. Meanwhile, Guy was impressed. Throwing away what you know and just listening to someone more knowledgeable and experienced was something very few could do. Most would try to stick to their knowledge and beliefs until they experienced a loss and reluctantly listen to others. He said, all right, I'll explain it to you. Your initial information is right. The human body can't exert all of its strength. There are limiters in place to ensure that we don't hurt ourselves. The 8 inner gates forbidden technique breaks through these limiters. As for the limiters, there aren't any literal gates or blockades in our bodies. Instead, the limiters are just like ordinary chakra points. There are 8 special chakra points in our body that are responsible for limiting the amount of chakra flowing through it, and thus limiting our body's capabilities. These 8 chakra points act like gates. To unlock each gate, you have to push a high amount of chakra through the respective chakra point. While this sounds easy, that isn't the case. Finding the chakra point is easy. However, you won't be able to flow a high amount of chakra through them if your body isn't strong enough to handle that. No matter how much you try, the chakra point will not budge. That is the biggest difficulty in learning the 8 inner gates technique. Your body has to be strong. If your body isn't strong enough, you won't even open the first gate, even if your body is strong enough. If you don't train in the future, you'll slowly lose the ability to open the gates one by one. It isn't like ninjutsu or genjutsu, where your skill will always remain with you with little practice. That is why almost no ninja learns this technique. No one wants to keep training their body all the time. If you want to learn it, you'll have to increase the intensity of your current training, and keep doing so for as long as you want to increase the number of gates you can open. Do you still want to learn this technique? Fujin nodded without thinking much. Training was never an issue for him. Even when he was busy in the Ambu, he still did the basic training every day, except for the days he was on missions. Guy grinned and said, very good, I'll now explain the gates. The first gate is the gate of opening. Its chakra point is located in the left hemisphere of your brain. It removes your mental inhibitions. That is, it removes the limits placed on your body by your brain. Your chakra will increase slightly, but the main advantage is that your muscle movement will increase. Your muscles will be able to expand and contract optimally, and your blood flow will improve. Of course, the backlash of being able to do that is heavy as well. You know that the 8 inner gates allows you to use all your strength by removing the limiters, right? Fujin nodded and replied, yes. Guy grinned and said, in truth, that isn't entirely correct. Fujin was surprised. He asked, what do you mean? Guy answered, the gate of opening itself allows you to use 100% of your body's capability. Fujin was surprised by the information. However, very quickly it clicked. He asked, you mean? Guy nodded and said, Yes, the gate of opening allows you to exert 100% of your strength without harming yourself. The remaining gates extract more from your body to help you go far beyond what your body should be able to do. Of course, that doesn't come from thin air and is instead the strength extracted from your body. As such, every gate after the first is harmful to your body. This is especially true from the gate of life onwards. The damage done to your body is far worse than the muscle tears you will experience after opening the gates, and no healer will be able to heal that damage. Only through intense training, you can make your body strong enough to sustain and overcome the damage to keep getting stronger. This is what I meant by you having to train continuously. The more you use the 8 inner gates in combat, the more you need to increase the intensity of your training. For the gate of opening, the drawback is just exhaustion and some physical damage and trauma to your body due to using 100% of your strength without any mental inhibitions. You can heal the damage with some rest and the help of a good medical ninja. The second gate, that is, the gate of healing, overexerts each and every cell in your body to generate more stamina and chakra for you to recover and have a second chance in a fight. However, even this can be recovered from by eating a lot and providing sufficient nutrients to your body. From the third gate onwards, there is no other way other than excessively training your body. Remember this, if you learn to open them, avoid using them as long as you can. Fujin's expression became grim, even though he was aware of the drawbacks of the 8 inner gates technique. It seemed like he had still underestimated their backlash. He thought, looks like the price to pay to use them is too high. Fortunately, the cost of opening the gate of healing isn't high, and I don't need to use the 8 inner gates against most of my opponents. I only need it against enemies who can absorb ninjutsu or are immune to it. Fujin said solemnly, I will remember this guy. Guy smiled and said, good, the chakra point of the gate of healing is located in the right hemisphere of your brain, as I just said. This gate re-energizes you by recovering your stamina and chakra to optimal condition and healing minor injuries such as muscle tears caused due to opening the gate of opening. If you are exhausted, be it from opening the first gate or through just normal fighting, this gate will give you a second chance of fighting. In addition, it also increases your physical strength and chakra slightly like the other gates. The third gate is the gate of life. Its chakra point is located on your spinal cord. This is the gate where you see an explosive growth in your strength and speed. Both are increased several times as compared to the gate of healing. As a result, your skin becomes red and your pupils disappear. Of course, it is also very difficult to open for that reason. If you do manage to open the gate of life, you'll have to rest a long time whenever you open it. The overaccretion also happens from this gate onwards. And as I said, some irreversible damage will be left in your body. Fujin nodded, greedily absorbing all the information and remembering all the warnings. Guy added, for now, this much information is sufficient for you. Learning about the higher gates won't be of any help. If you manage to learn how to open this gate, I'll teach you about the gate of pain and the gate of limit. Fujin nodded and said, all right, Guy said, I will now demonstrate the process of opening the first gate. Observe me carefully. Fujin nodded and concentrated his chakra in his eyes. Guy noticed Fujin's glowing eyes and shouted, 8 inner gates formation gate of opening open. As soon as Guy opened the first gate, the air around him became erratic. But that wasn't all. With his glowing eyes, Fujin noticed a surge of chakra flowing in Guy's body. In addition, his muscles also looked to be slightly stronger. Guy said, this is the gate of opening. I will attack you now. Observe me carefully and defend or dodge. Fujin immediately moved away from Guy and prepared himself. Guy said, here I come. His figure disappeared, and he appeared right in front of Fujin. Fujin's eyes widened, as he thought, so fast. Chapter 426 The Gate of Opening. Fujin quickly ducked down to avoid a kick and moved back to avoid Guy's fist. However, Guy followed up with a kick straight towards Fujin's face. Fujin cursed, shit, I can't dodge fast enough. He quickly jumped backwards to soften the impact of the blow. At the same time, he raised his arms to block the kick. Before Guy's kick landed, he instinctively used the iron skin jutsu to harden his arms. Guy's kick landed on Fujin's arms. Immediately, shock appeared on Fujin's face as he felt the power behind the kick. Fujin had sparred with Guy on a regular basis for the past few months. He had to endure several kicks and punches, though Guy's body was stronger and his attacks were heavier. Fujin could always endure the hits. However, this time, Fujin was launched backwards like a cannonball. The iron skin jutsu covered his entire body. He smashed through 2 trees, which slowed him enough to flip in the air and land on his legs and knees. However, He was still dragged along the ground for around 25 meters and only stopped after hitting the third tree. Despite protecting his arms with iron skin jutsu, Fujin could still feel the making. Fortunately, the rest of his body was fine, he thought in amazement. Just the first gate provides so much buff, so this is the result of using your body at 100% and removing all mental inhibitions. His speed was fast. More importantly, his movement was just too fluid. Is this due to the improvement in muscle movement that he said? And his kick was so heavy as well. Guy looked at Fujin's expression and said, by removing the mental inhibitions, your brain no longer limits the extent of physical energy you can use. It also removes any sense of holding back due to the fear of hurting my body due to my power. Hence, I can use all my strength. Though the effects aren't very obvious to the eye, you should have felt them. Apart from my increase in chakra, the improvement in my muscle movement allows me to move, and more importantly react faster. You could dodge my first attack. But the successive attacks became harder for you to dodge because your body couldn't react as fast as mine. And since I no longer cared about hurting myself, my strength was far greater than yours. Fujin thought for a bit and nodded. He said, yeah, dodging your first kick wasn't difficult. But it became very difficult to dodge the follow-up attacks. Your kick was far heavier as well. I can still feel it. As he talked, a smile appeared on Fujin's face. He thought, not bad at all, though I have already seen it. I wasn't expecting such a surprise from the first gate. In the show, only the last 3 gates were useful when combating against rank S ninjas. So, I didn't have much hope from earlier gates, other than the gate of healing. Once I am done with the Flying Thunder God and the seals I want to create, I can focus on the 8 inner gates along with my wind domain and keep that up at least until I can learn Senjutsu. No matter how many gates I can open, it'll just be beneficial for me as long as I don't use them repeatedly. He looked at Guy and asked the question he wanted to ask for a long time. How do I open the gate of opening? Guy said, you will first have to locate the chakra point in the left hemisphere of your brain. Guy took out a few scrolls from his jacket and went through them until he found the scroll he wanted. He opened it, showed it to Fujin, and said, study this diagram properly and observe the location of that chakra point in the diagram. Every individual has their chakra points at slightly different positions, but they are still close by. Try to find your chakra point that acts as the first gate. If you want, you can read the notes as well. Fujin nodded and said, thanks Guy. Fujin carefully went through the scroll. After understanding everything, he closed his eyes and sat in a meditative position. Chakra began flowing smoothly throughout his body. He focused on just the chakra points in the left hemisphere of his brain. In a couple of minutes, he located the chakra point that Guy and the scroll were referring to. He opened his eyes and said, found it. Guy said, good. He took back the scroll. Fujin couldn't help but ask, do you carry such scrolls all the time with you? Guy chuckled and said, just a few. They don't have details on all the gates. I also use it to make notes in case I discover something new while training or opening the inner gates during a fight. Besides, most of the villages already have the method of learning this technique. They just lack anyone who would be willing to train all the time. Fujin thought, that makes sense. Even in Konoha, there are the likes of Hirusen, Danzo, the 3 Sanins, and Kakashi. None of them lack talent. However, none of them are willing to train all the time like Guy did. Of course, considering their talent, it could be just because they don't need it. After all, not everyone can be like Guy, who almost killed Madara, who had reached the level of the Sage of 6 Paths. By comparison, Might Due, who opened the Gate of Death, was only able to kill 4 out of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Madara, even when he only had the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, could still kill all 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist without breaking a sweat. Heck, even Hiruzen might be able to do it, assuming someone like Kisame isn't a part of that team. So I guess they didn't value it that highly considering the costs. Still, Fujin was surprised. He chuckled and said, I never thought of you as someone who would make notes. Guy, the image of Might Guy sitting and writing notes was just too funny for Fujin to imagine. Guy laughed as well and said, well, it can't be helped. No matter who, if you want to become strong, you can't ignore such basics. Anyways, now that you have found the chakra point, focus your chakra on it. You will feel some resistance. If you don't, then it would mean that the chakra point you chose is wrong and stop immediately. Once you feel the resistance, force as much chakra as you can through it. Since it is your first time, it will be difficult, but your body is sufficiently strong. You should be able to do it relatively easily. In the best case, you might get it done in a few minutes. In the worst case scenario, you'll open it in a week. Fujin was surprised. He wondered, that fast? Now that I think about it, it makes sense. After all, Lee would master up to the 5th gate in less than 2 years, and his body now is far weaker than mine when I graduated. Well, let's hope everything goes well. Fujin closed his eyes and focused on that chakra point once again. He tried to gently push a little amount of chakra through it. At the start, some chakra went through the chakra point, but very quickly it resisted. Fujin couldn't push any chakra through it. He thought, it looks like I spotted it correctly. All right. Here goes nothing. Chapter 427. A couple of minutes. Fujin focused on the chakra point once again. This time, he didn't try to push it gently. Instead, he bombarded that chakra point with as much chakra as he could. The chakra point immediately felt a lot of pressure but resisted the bombardment. However, Fujin kept up the pressure. A couple of minutes later, under constant bombardment, the chakra point gave in. The blockade disappeared, and a high amount of chakra flowed through that chakra point. Fujin's eyes snapped open. He felt a surge of chakra flowing through his body. The air around him became erratic. Guy, who was observing Fujin, was surprised. He smiled wryly and thought, less than 4 minutes, he is just like Kakashi. Even he needed less than 5 minutes to open the gate of opening. On the other hand, I needed a month to open it. That said, they did attempt opening the first gate when they were far older than me and had a far stronger physique. Still, it looks like Fujin's physique is far better than I thought. Opening the gate of healing shouldn't take much time for him either. At most, it'll take a week. However, the gate of life is where the real determination gets tested. While he will succeed, it will take a long time, and he will feel demotivated to work on opening more. I wonder if he will keep opening more gates or quit like Kakashi after the gate of life. While Guy was lost in his thoughts, Fujin was lost in the incredible feeling he was experiencing. He thought, damn, I have never felt so free in my life. I can feel it. It's as if all restraints placed on my body have been removed. My brain is much more active. It's as if my senses are amplified several times. My eyesight is far better. I can pick up the lightest sounds and my sense of smell has improved as well. More importantly, my body's instincts are heightened to a whole new level. I doubt anyone would be able to sneak attack on me as I am now. And the cherry on the cake is that my thinking speed seems to have increased as well. Apart from my brain, my muscles have improved considerably as well. Though there is no observable change, I can sense that my muscles can provide me with far more strength than before. And I have a feeling that they will be far more responsive. No wonder Guy could make his follow-up attacks that quickly. Increased thinking speed plus reduced response time for muscles. My chakra also has increased by around 15. However, the most incredible part about the gate of opening is the feeling I'm getting. I can get addicted to this feeling. It feels as if this is how my body is supposed to be. Even those medical sensations with Yoshi and Isamu aren't this relaxing. The only thing that came close was when I sensed nature energy while riding on Ryu's back. But even that didn't feel as natural as this. I wonder what would happen if I mix Sage Mode with the gate of opening. Regardless, it's time to test it. Fujin got up. He looked towards a rock that was raised from the ground due to the earlier spar. Fujin disappeared from his spot, appeared in front of the rock and punched it in one fluid motion. As he expected, his punch decimated that rock. Small pieces of the rock were scattered away from Fujin. He looked at his fist and marveled. This is incredible. The power is far beyond the normal strong fist style. It is almost comparable to concentrating chakra on my fist, but it doesn't have the drawback of requiring time and is even faster than my normal punches due to the speed increase. He looked at Guy and said with gratitude, "It feels incredible, Guy. Thanks for guiding me." Guy looked at Fujin's fist and said, "Good work opening the gate. However, don't do that again." Fujin was confused. He asked, "Do you mean don't punch, why not?" Guy answered, "This is the first time you opened a gate. I'm sure you are feeling restless to test it. Perhaps you even want to spar against me. Unfortunately, this will also be the first time you face the backlash for pushing past the natural limits of the human body. So don't strain your body. I'm sure it feels incredible. But it'll soon feel just as bad." Guy's words made Fujin feel awkward. He thought, "Oh, I got carried away. This feeling is indeed great. The desire to experience an epic battle is too intense. I would even want to spar against Hiruzen while I'm experiencing this. Unfortunately, I don't think I can sustain it for long." Seeing his expression, Guy said, "No need to test out what your stamina is. You can slowly explore it over the next few days or weeks by increasing the duration each time. That way you won't accidentally overexert yourself." You can close the gate of opening now. Fujin nodded and stopped pushing the chakra through the chakra point. The blockade on his body reappeared. The surge of chakra through Fujin's body disappeared and instead, he felt a wave of exhaustion washing over him. His breathing became rough and a terrible pain could be felt in his right fist. Fujin cursed, "Damn, the backlash is intense. It almost feels like I have broken my fist and used up all my stamina." Guy nodded and said, "That's why I asked you to not overexert yourself. This is just the first time, so your body isn't used to it. With practice, the backlash for the gate of opening won't be this intense." Fujin nodded. He said, "Regardless, thanks Guy. I didn't think I'd learn this so easily." Guy replied, "Well, this technique isn't complicated despite being a forbidden jutsu. One just needs to have a strong enough body and know what to do. You will be able to open the gate of healing quickly as well, but don't try it until you get a hang of the gate of opening. Right now, it takes you around 3 to 4 minutes to locate the chakra point and open the gate of opening. In a battle, you won't have this luxury, so you need to work on opening the gate at will. In addition, you also need to improve your stamina. Keep working on it until you can sustain it for at least 5 minutes while you meditate and 2 minutes while you fight. It shouldn't take a lot of time to do this. Only after fulfilling these 2 conditions, attempt to open the gate of healing." Fujin nodded and said, "All right, I'll follow your instructions." Guy said, "Good, I'll help you find the chakra point for the gate of healing as well. You can try opening it later when you fulfill the 2 conditions for the gate of opening." Fujin nodded and sat down. Guy provided him with another scroll with a diagram and some notes to help locate the chakra point in the right hemisphere of his brain. After finding it, Fujin opened the first gate and tried to push some chakra through the second chakra point to confirm whether he found the right one. After confirming, he closed the gate of opening. Of course, that caused him to be even more tired. Guy grinned and said, "Seeing you work this hard ignites the flames of youth in me. Take a rest for today, Fujin. I'll focus on training my students for the remainder of the day. You don't need to find me for sparring until you become comfortable with opening the gate of healing. It'll be better if you just focus on training your body and getting it accustomed to opening the inner gates instead of sparring with me or anyone else." Fujin chuckled and said, "All right, I'll focus on the gates of opening and healing. Also, have fun with your students. Let them experience the flames of youth as well. I'll see you later, Guy. I'll visit after opening and getting accustomed to the gate of healing." Fujin disappeared from the training ground. Guy disappeared as well and appeared where his 3 students were. All of them were running on their hands. Guy asked, "How many rounds are you done with by now?" Tenta nearly cried as she complained in her heart. 3 hours haven't even passed. Why is he back so early?" Lee excitedly said, "We are doing our 57th round, Guy-sensei." Guy said loudly, "Just 57th? That's too slow. We will do 300 rounds today. Follow me." Guy's excitement horrified Neji and Tenten. Both muttered internally, "We are doomed." Guy too got on his hands and began running upside down in front of his students. Lee followed excitedly while the other 2 followed reluctantly. Chapter 428 Permanently opening the gate of opening. As he returned home, Fujin chuckled at the thought of Guy training Neji, Lee and Tantan beyond their limits. He muttered, "Well, sucks to be them. Knowing Guy's training, I doubt they'd be able to get off their bed for a few days." That said, Fujin entered his house and took a deep breath. He pondered, "I still feel so exhausted. Opening the gate of opening twice in quick succession takes a lot of toll on my body, and my fist still aches." Fujin stared at his right fist. Soon a green chakra covered his fist and began healing the damage. In a minute, the pain subsided. Fujin stretched his palm and analyzed. Fortunately, the damage was only superficial, and though I feel tired, it's only my body and mind being a bit exhausted due to suddenly getting used to their full extent. My chakra is still fine. After resting for half an hour, I can continue training the Flying Thunder God. Still, that sensation I had on opening the first gate. How beneficial it'll be if I can experience that all the time. Is it possible for me to keep the gate of opening open all the time? Fujin fell into deep thought. After a minute he thought, my current body definitely can't handle that much stress. I'll collapse very quickly. But can I train my body so much that it becomes strong enough to sustain it? Fujin very quickly shook his head and thought, no, even if I make my body strong enough, it won't be the same as using my body at 100% capability. Instead, what 100% of my body can do would become greater as well. Even if my future body can do my current 100% naturally, that wouldn't be the same as keeping the gate open. So, how can I do that? As he waited for his body to rest up, Fujin thought continuously about ideas to be able to use his body at 100% capacity all the time, without experiencing the drawbacks. Unfortunately, even after thinking long, he couldn't come up with anything. He sighed and thought, "A shame, I can't think of anything." That said, had it been that easy, I'm sure someone else would have already figured it out, and a lot of top-level ninjas would have been able to do this. Now that I think about it, Guy's description of the benefits of Gate of Healing is quite similar to that theory on increasing cellular activity researched by Orochimaru. I wonder if the Gate of Healing is what inspired him to undertake that research. Still, there are some differences. In some aspects, Orochimaru's method is superior. Increasing cellular activity increases chakra reserves permanently and without any drawback. The effect is much better than the Gate of Healing. However, when using it in the middle of a battle to recover chakra, the drawbacks to Orochimaru's method are very harmful. In comparison, the Gate of Healing has no permanent backlash, regardless. The two are indeed similar. If Orochimaru was inspired by the Gate of Healing, I wonder if something similar can be done with the Gate of Opening, to figure out a way to increase the percent of our physical strength our body can use. That will be difficult, though it shouldn't be a dead end. I'll try working on this if I have a lot of time on my hands in the future. Another interesting aspect is whether the effects of increased cellular activity and the Gate of Healing can overlap, or if I can only use one at a time. From Guy's words, I should be able to open the Gate of Healing quickly. However, for increased cellular activity, I will need to wait for Tsunade to return to the village. That is more than a year and a half away at this point, and that will only happen if events play out the same. If Hiruzen survives, then it is unlikely that Jiraiya will go looking for her. Even Kakashi and Sasuke won't be in critical shape, as Itachi would likely not show up in the village. Only Lee would be injured, but I doubt that would make Hiruzen call back Tsunade. Fujin sighed, calculating the possible variations in the future he knew was too exhausting and extremely difficult. He decided, leave it. There is no point in speculating so much. I'll just focus on increasing my strength. If the future does change and Hiruzen survives, I'll just use an alternate identity to target and injure someone important to Hiruzen bad enough that only Tsunade can heal them. Preferably Homura or Koharu. If those two don't give any such opportunities, then I can only target Asuma. Though defeating them with just lightning release will be difficult, I still have a lot of time to create a good combat system revolving around my lightning release. Not to mention, I already have a very good idea. It won't take much time to be able to confront elite Junins while using just lightning jutsus, thanks to my strong basics. Anyway, as long as I injure either of them badly enough, it should be enough to force Hiruzen to recall Tsunade to the village temporarily. I can take the opportunity to get her help to increase my cellular activity. With his decision finalized, Fujin continued his training. He rested long enough for the tiredness from opening the first gate to disappear. For the next few days, Fujin followed a different pattern. He stopped practicing his wind domain. Instead, he trained his body in the morning, and followed it up by training the flying thunder god for the rest of his day. However, he opened the Gate of Opening twice daily with a long time between them to get used to it. A week later, Fujin was sitting inside the meditation room in his house in a meditative position. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and muttered, "Today's the day." He took an alarm clock and placed it in front of him, setting the timer for 5 minutes. Almost instantly, the Gate of Opening opened, and a surge of chakra appeared around Fujin. Fujin had been able to open the Gate of Opening at will on the 4th day of practice. On the 6th day, he had become capable of keeping it open for 2 minutes straight while he moved around at a rapid speed and wreaked havoc in the training ground. His fists and legs did hurt a lot when he hit trees and rocks, but he could endure the pain and heal them later. After opening the Gate of Opening, Fujin closed his eyes again and kept meditating. He was aiming to keep the gate open for 5 minutes straight. He had barely missed on his previous try, reaching 4 minutes and 48 seconds, hence he was quite confident about it. Slowly the time ticked. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 4. Fujin felt a slight strain on his body, but it was nothing he couldn't bear. He stayed in his meditative posture. Finally, the alarm sounded in his room. A smile appeared on Fujin's face. He met the condition set by Guy. Almost immediately, he began bombarding the chakra point for the Gate of Healing, just like the earlier chakra point. This one resisted as well. Fujin continued bombardment. However, even after 30 seconds of bombardment, the chakra point didn't show any signs of giving in. Fujin stopped the bombardment, and the Gate of Opening closed. Fujin's breathing became rough. He thought, well, this is tough. The resistance is much higher. However, that isn't an issue. The issue is that I have to keep the first gate open. Only then can I try this. So I can only try this 2 or 3 times a day for 5 to 6 minutes each time. Looks like opening the gate of healing will take some time. Fujin got up and went to rest. He continued with the same training pattern. The only change was that he kept bombarding the second chakra point whenever he opened the gate of opening. Chapter 429 Dimensional Void. In his basement, Fujin and several shadow clones were sitting in a meditative position. Each one of them faced a pillar, or the walls, which had one flying thunder god seal marking on them. Fujin's body was tired from opening the gate of opening and trying to open the gate of healing. As such, he and his shadow clones focused on the flying thunder god technique. Despite having felt that a breakthrough was close, the breakthrough eluded Fujin for a month. As they meditated, one shadow clone suddenly felt a change. He kept his eyes closed and focused entirely on the seal in front of him. In a few seconds, some chakra disappeared from his body. Almost instantly, a small portion of the chakra that had disappeared from his body appeared on the flying thunder god seal in front of him. A glee appeared on his face as he thought, I see, so this is how space-time travel happens. The clone closed his eyes and recalled how the process happened. He thought, when the chakra exited my body, it entered a different dimension. It was able to somehow move through it because I could sense the marking in front of me. This is exactly what is mentioned in the scroll. The scroll stated that after Tobirama wasn't satisfied with just using reverse summoning for Flying Thunder God. He kept researching more about space-time ninjutsu. However, it was mostly a dead end. Only after finding this dimension did Tobirama make a breakthrough and create a true teleportation technique that is usable in battle. The scroll says that Tobirama named this as Dimensional Void. But what is this dimension? The scroll doesn't mention how Tobirama found or even sensed this dimension. It doesn't even say anything about what this dimension is. It only says that the dimension can only be accessed with the Flying Thunder God seal, and that traveling through it isn't completely safe. The clone thought for a few minutes before letting out a sigh. He muttered to himself, this world is still so full of mysteries. Even someone like Hirozen is unaware of the fact that all the chakra we use originated from Kaguya, and she is from a crazy strong clan. Who knows what mysteries are involved with the Otsutsuki clan, and that is just the start. How many such mysteries exist in this universe? Even just restricting myself to this planet, there is so much that no one knows. Why are there so many chakra-rich resources in this world? Do resources like those exist on every planet, or is this planet special for some reason? What is this dimension that can be used for space-time travel? What is the extent of this dimension? Does it only cover this planet, or does it cover the entire universe? Why do some symbols coming together form a unique power that allows us to access this dimension? Even though I have become a grandmaster in Fiin Jutsu, I still don't understand why these symbols have such power. I don't think anyone else does as well. Sigh. So many mysteries. I wonder if I will ever get to the bottom of this. Anyway, time to test it. The clone raised his left hand slightly and brought it to his chest height. The Flying Thunder God seal appeared on his palm. Soon, a wind explosion sphere formed on top of his left palm. The chakra fluctuations due to creating a jutsu were sensed by everyone in the basement. Immediately, Fujin and all his clones spanned out of their meditative states and observed the clone who was creating the jutsu. All couldn't help but wonder, did he complete the first part of this third step? Despite wondering that, no one disturbed the shadow clone. The clone who had formed the wind explosion sphere had his entire attention focused on it. In front of everyone's gazes, the wind explosion sphere disappeared. Everyone's eyes widened. The jutsu hadn't dissipated. Instead, it had disappeared from the room. The wind explosion sphere appeared in the dimensional void. However, before the clone could make it appear at the Flying Thunder God seal in front of him, the jutsu dissipated in the dimensional void. Nothing reached the seal in front of him. A frown formed on the face of the clone as he analyzed. The warnings were true. Even though I can now sense the dimensional void, moving through it is still very difficult. Wind explosion sphere is a very unstable jutsu and uses very little chakra. I need something more solid. The clone focused on his left palm again. He released the chakra, and it began rotating rapidly. Soon, a race engine formed in his left hand. Just like the wind explosion sphere, the race engine disappeared from the basement as well. It appeared in the dimensional void. The clone immediately sensed the flying thunder god seal in front of him and had the race engine move towards it. Unfortunately, the race engine began crumbling as well. Only some chakra made it through and hit the pillar in front of him, causing a small explosion. The eyes of everyone in the room glittered. The clone had indeed had a breakthrough. However, the clone wasn't satisfied. He analyzed. It looks like this will require a lot of practice as well. The second part of this third step, huh? That said, I'm interested in seeing what this dimensional void is and how things move through it. Experiencing it will make completing this step a bit easier. He closed his eyes again and focused on himself. A second later he disappeared from the basement. Once again, no one in the basement could sense where he went. The clone appeared in the dimensional void and opened his eyes. His eyes widened in shock as he realized, what an intense pressure. My body can't move an inch. How can I even move in this dimension? The clone was confused. The pressure was too intense. Even if he became stronger in the future, he didn't see himself being able to move around in the dimensional void. The clone immediately unleashed most of his chakra to resist the pressure. Unfortunately, it wasn't much help. He still couldn't move. However, his eyes moved rapidly, trying to absorb any information he could. At the same time, his mind tried to sense the seal markings he had created. Immediately, the clone noticed two things. The first was the dimension itself. There was nothing in the dimension at all. Even light wasn't present there. The clone couldn't see anything. However, as a ninja, light wasn't something he relied on entirely. His eyes glowed and he focused chakra on his ears and nose as well. However, he still couldn't see, hear or smell anything. He thought, no wonder Tabaruma named this as the dimensional void. There is nothing here, or at least there is nothing here that a rank S ninja is capable of sensing. That said, this is indeed a surprise. I thought that we would have to move through this dimension in order to be able to teleport in the Naruto world. I assumed that either I would be able to travel in this dimension at the speed of light, allowing me to move like I am teleporting, or the speed at which time flows in this world would be far faster, creating a similar effect. However, I can't even move my body in this dimension. Instead, I can clearly sense all the markings that are within 5 kilometer range from the place I was sitting at. I just have to decide which marking to select and I can teleport there at will. Or rather, I will be able to do so in the future. In other words, these markings act as portals. Or rather, the seal on my body and any marking I choose come together and act as a portal using this dimension as the medium, allowing me to teleport. Can this be called teleportation? Tough to say. Regardless, the effect is indeed similar. The clone focused his mind on the marking on the pillar in front of him and tried leaving the dimensional void through it. Unfortunately, he couldn't do so. Finally, his body couldn't handle the intense pressure and he was dispelled. Though the clone had experienced a lot, he didn't actually spend a lot of time in it. He was in the dimensional void for less than a second. As soon as he was dispelled, his memories were transferred to Fujin and the remaining shadow clones. Chapter 430, The Complicated Third Step. Fujin quickly analyzed his shadow clone's memories. He let out a sigh at the questions that his clone had wondered about. Unfortunately, he wasn't strong enough yet to resolve those mysteries, though they weren't as miraculous as his transmogrification. They were still concepts beyond his current strength. However, unlike his transmogrification, Fujin was hopeful that he would figure out these mysteries in the future. He quickly removed those thoughts from his head and focused on the flying thunder god jutsu. He let out a sigh and muttered, I had a feeling that I would experience a breakthrough only 2 weeks after I began practicing the third step. To think that I would need another month of training to actually achieve that breakthrough, and that is when I kept training with 15 shadow clones. That is equivalent to training for 16 months. No wonder such a technique didn't exist before Shadow Clone Jutsu was created. Who'd spend so much time on this while your clan was constantly at war? Having analyzed the information, Fujin dispelled his shadow clones. All their experience and analysis poured into Fujin's brain. He spent a few minutes getting his thoughts together. He analyzed. The first 2 steps to learn the Flying Thunder God were straightforward. However, the third step is quite complicated. In fact, it is further divided into 4 more steps. The first step is to sense the dimensional void and send my chakra into it. Sensing my markings from the dimensional void is also a part of this step. It took me a month and a half to complete this step. The second step is to transport a jutsu through the dimensional void. Unfortunately, only the jutsus where chakra is concentrated can be transported through the dimensional void. Jutsus like Infinite Breakthrough Jutsu will directly collapse in the dimensional void. The reason for this should be the intense pressure my clone felt. I will have to add a layer of chakra coating to my jutsus for them to maintain their forms while transporting through the void. Now that I think about it, Race Engine and its elemental forms will be perfect for traveling through the dimensional void. They are made purely of chakra and hence don't need any such layer of protection. Once I become comfortable with this step, I'll be able to teleport Race Engine with the help of the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. I wonder if this was one of the reasons why Minato created the Race Engine. Still, this second step is just so that I can get used to moving space-time teleportation. It isn't practical to sneak jutsus through this for several reasons. For starters, most jutsus can't travel through the dimensional void, and more importantly, momentum isn't conserved during this teleportation. So if I randomly send a jutsu to one of my markings, the jutsu will just collapse or explode on reaching the marking. Say, this shatters my dream of firing vacuum bullets through these markings. How cool would that have been? The only way this would be useful is if someone is carrying something with my marking or is directly marked by me. In that case, I can just create Race Engine, teleport it to that marking, have it explode on their body and just keep spamming it until they die. I wonder if the Rinnegan can absorb ninjutsus instinctively. If not, I can even kill Nagato if I am able to mark his real body. Only Obito might be tough to deal with, as I am not sure if I can sense the markings in his Kamui dimension. Perhaps I could cooperate with Kakashi and have a few shadow clones active in that dimension to attack him once he is marked. Sigh, that bastard is so difficult to kill. That said, the biggest advantage of this step is probably defense. I can just send any attacks coming at me into the dimensional void. It doesn't matter if those attacks can survive in the dimensional void or not. I will stay safe, though it takes some chakra to transport attacks here. The chakra needed is just a fraction of what is needed to form jutsus. Unless my opponent is a tailed beast or a Jinwekuric, I won't have to worry about running out of chakra. The best part is that if I have already marked my enemy and he attacks me with a jutsu that I can transport through the dimensional void, then I can hurt or kill them with their own attacks. If I become capable of teleporting a tailed beast bomb, it'd be hilarious if I teleport it back to the tailed beast's body. That would be fun to watch, haha. Anyway, once I am comfortable with the second step, I can move on to the third step, which is having my shadow clones teleport through the dimensional void. Until my shadow clones can teleport with 100% accuracy for a month, I shouldn't try it with my real body. Only after a month of experimentation with no problem, I can try the fourth step, which is doing it with my main body. At that point, this technique can be considered as successfully learnt. I will only have to improve it further by increasing the range up to where I can sense my markings and the range of teleporting as well. Being able to teleport across countries. Sigh, that will take some time. However, it should be doable, considering that even those three could do so. After all, Mai was quite far away from the battlefield that Madara was on, and they still managed to sense the marking and send her there. Fujin looked around in his basement. He analysed. Though I do have a lot of seals here, I doubt they can endure a barrage of Rasenjun. I will need to increase the protection. Fujin made the confrontation hand seal. Immediately, several seals on the walls and pillars began glowing. One shadow clone appeared next to Fujin. He moved to the center of the basement and sat there. Immediately, several seals appeared on the floor and the ceiling with the shadow clone at the center. Immediately, a barrier appeared and covered the wall's pillars, floor and ceiling in the basement. With the barrier, Fujin no longer had any worries. Fujin created a new set of shadow clones to assist him in training. All of them began trying to teleport a Rasenjun to the markings in front of them. All their attempts were unsuccessful, as Fujin wasn't used to dimensional void yet. Only a small amount of chakra reached the markings, causing a series of small explosions in the basement. Fortunately, the barrier ensured that his house was undamaged. Unfortunately, Fujin overlooked one important factor. Fujin dispelled his clones as his breathing became heavy. He cursed. Shit, I forgot that my chakra reserves won't be able to sustain a continuous barrage of Rasenjun. Not to mention, keeping the barrier up while enduring a barrage of small explosions burned the clone's chakra rapidly as well. I'm already empty. There was no helping it. Even Naruto wouldn't be able to sustain a Rasenjun barrage for more than a few minutes unless Kurama provides him with his chakra continuously. For Fujin, sustaining it for even a few minutes with 15 shadow clones was too difficult. Even more so when the Rasenjun had to be sent to the dimensional void, since that required chakra as well. Fujin sighed and decided, I guess I have to stick to the wind explosion sphere. It'll be a lot harder to do than the Rasenjun, but it won't be very chakra exhaustive, and I won't need to use a barrier, as the normal strengthening seals should be sufficient to shrug off the damage due to some winds. Fujin took a break and continued his training once his chakra had recovered. Even though Wind Explosion's fear consumed just a fraction of the chakra as compared to Race Engine, it still burned Fujin's chakra very quickly. As such, his speed of training the Flying Thunder God Jutsu slowed. However, his progress with the Gate of Healing was steady. 3 days later, he managed to open the Gate of Healing for the first time. Chapter 431 Gate of Healing. Sitting in his basement, Fujin observed his own body with amazement. He analyzed, wow, I only had 75% of my chakra left. In an instant, it recovered completely. In addition, it has also increased further by 50% temporarily. I'm not sure how much, but I can feel that my physical strength has increased as well. Fujin closed both the inner gates and took a few breaths. Soon, he felt a wave of exhaustion and an intense hunger. He thought, no wonder Guy said that we need to eat a lot after opening the Gate of Healing. It feels like every cell in my body is exhausted. Getting used to this gate will take some time as well if I have to wait for my body to recover properly every time I open this gate. It looks like I should open the Gate of Healing only when my chakra reserves are full and I'm properly rested. That way, no energy would be required to recover my stamina and chakra, and the backlash would be reduced greatly, so I can recover quickly. Still, the 8 inner gates is far more sophisticated than I thought. The first inner gate allows our body to function at 100. The second inner gate recovers chakra and stamina. During a fight, if higher level inner gates are opened, the lower ones stay open as well. It implies that while fighting, the chakra level and stamina will always be preserved at the highest levels. As long as the body can keep the inner gates open, I will have limitless chakra and stamina. In a way, the first and the second inner gates provide the perfect base for fighting. Even my minor injuries will be healed so that I don't face any obstacles in fighting. So as long as my body doesn't crumble or I don't take any major injuries, I will be able to fight at my strongest level. Of course, the backlash of doing so would be crazy as well. Instead of doing that, it would be better to just teleport away. Fujin was very tempted by the possible advantages gained by using the Gate of Opening and Gate of Healing. Unfortunately, the backlash was just as bad. As such, Fujin was in no hurry to try it out. He analyzed. Regardless, the buffs from these 2 inner gates are sufficient to raise a normal ninja and put him on an equal or even higher footing than the ones who have Keki Genkai. Only something ridiculous like the Mangekyo Sharingan is stronger. But how many ninjas unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan in every generation? By comparison, anyone who is willing to put in the hard work can learn how to open the first 2 inner gates. If Hiruzen can find children who are willing to work hard and influence them to keep training hard enough, then it might be possible to raise several dozen ninjas who can open the gates of opening and healing. Still, why didn't someone like Danzo implement this in Root? Could it be just because Root prefers to hide in the darkness? Despite being strong, the 8 inner gates isn't very helpful in that regard. Still, that reason isn't good enough to reject this idea, especially considering that Might Dewey was able to kill 4 of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. I wonder if there are any more issues in training such a force. Anyway, I needed just a couple of minutes to open the Gate of Opening. The Gate of Healing needed only 6 days. I wonder how much time the Gate of Life will take. I have a feeling that it will take more than just having a strong body to open more inner gates. Otherwise, there would have been a lot of other ninjas who practiced the 8 inner gates technique. Well, whatever, I'll get used to the Gate of Healing first and then see. After all, the Gate of Healing is why I wanted to learn the 8 inner gates in the first place. From the Gate of Life, the backlash is very intense, even if I manage to learn them. I'm better off never using them in battle. Perhaps I should improve my healing skills first. I wonder if Tsunade's mitotic regeneration can heal the damage from the backlash. Fujin thought for a bit before he shook his head. He thought, on second thought, that technique forcibly creates new cells, shortening the lifespan of the user. While it might heal the damage, it isn't without its backlashes either, and there is no guarantee that all the damage will be healed. Leave it. I'll focus on getting accustomed to the Gate of Healing and then try whether that idea is possible. If it is, then my 8 inner gates would be a lot scarier than Gaius. Fujin stopped analyzing and began resting. For the next 4 days, Fujin didn't try opening any of the inner gates. His body needed rest due to having extracted a lot of energy from his cells. Forcibly opening the inner gates would have resulted in the backlash that Guy had stated. Fujin focused entirely on training his body and the Flying Thunder God Jutsu on these 4 days. On the 5th day, Fujin's body finally felt energetic, however as a precaution. He didn't open the inner gates for 1 whole week. As soon as the week was up, Fujin began opening the inner gates and getting his body accustomed to it. He ensured that his chakra reserves were full and his body was properly rested before opening the gates to avoid triggering the backlash of the gate of healing. As a result, he could open the 2 inner gates twice every day. 5 days later, Fujin became capable of keeping the gate of healing open for 5 minutes while he meditated, and 2 minutes while he fought and reached the condition set by Guy. However, he wasn't in a hurry to go to Guy and work on opening the gate of life. Instead, he took the day off and returned to his training ground the next day. Instead of training his body, Fujin stood still on the training ground. He thought, though Guy is ridiculously strong when he uses the 8 inner gates, he only uses taijutsu. Opening the inner gates not only improves the body, it also increases the chakra levels temporarily. We can supercharge jutsus with far more chakra than normal. Though Guy isn't completely without talent and can use elemental ninjutsus, his level of ninjutsu is obviously nowhere near his taijutsu level. So it is understandable why he never uses ninjutsu after opening the inner gates. However, my situation is the opposite. I am far better at ninjutsu than taijutsu. If I can use ninjutsu while having my inner gates open, my strength will be in an entirely different league. Fujin was very excited just by the possibility of doing that. He immediately opened the gate of opening. Just like he had experienced dozens of times, Fujin's chakra reserves increased and chakra began surging around him. His body began performing at 110% of its capability. He took a deep breath. Wind release infinite breakthrough jutsu. Fujin built up his chakra and was about to blow when he suddenly stopped. A frown appeared on his face. He muttered to himself, "That's weird." Fujin closed his eyes and focused on the chakra flowing through his body. He analyzed, "My chakra is very erratic. No, rather it is in a state of hyperactivity, hence it wasn't manipulated properly as usual. But why didn't I face any problem in manipulating chakra earlier?" Fujin took a deep breath again and decided to use the jutsu again to properly inspect himself. Wind release infinite breakthrough jutsu. Unfortunately, the same thing happened. The chakra in his body didn't need accurately enough to form the jutsu. The frown on Fujin's face deepened. Immediately, the chakra in his body became concentrated on his right fist. Fujin punched a rock that was next to him, obliterating it into pieces. He analyzed, "Strange, very strange. My chakra flows very smoothly when I'm manipulating it to assist my taijutsu. The strong fist style is working subconsciously, while I can use the Senjutsu taijutsu style at will as well. However, when I try to manipulate the chakra for forming a ninjutsu, it doesn't work. Could it be because the way chakra moves while assisting in taijutsu is very simple and something that is supported instinctively, whereas manipulating it for creating ninjutsus is unnatural and hence not supported by my body instinctively? After all, we do need to use hand seals to guide the chakra inside our body to be able to create jutsus. Let me try that." At this time, Fujin weaved hand seals for the infinite breakthrough jutsu to create the jutsu. Unfortunately, he felt the same obstacle once again and failed in his attempt. Chapter 432 Drawback of 8 Inner Gates. Despite weaving hand seals, Fujin still couldn't perform the infinite breakthrough jutsu. Fujin muttered to himself, "I still failed. This feeling, it feels familiar. I remember it now. It almost feels like the first time I tried a new jutsu. Even if I weave hand signs, I won't be able to perform it unless that jutsu is very similar to another jutsu that I know. Still, why am I getting that feeling? Is it because of the hyperactive nature of the chakra flowing in my body? Let me see if I can use simpler jutsus." Fujin tried using the wind explosion sphere jutsu. The result didn't change. Not wanting to give up, Fujin tried using gale jutsu, the simplest wind jutsu he was aware of. To his surprise, even that didn't work. Fujin had a peculiar expression on his face. He closed the gate of opening and muttered while chuckling, "Never in a million years would I have imagined that I would fail to use the gale jutsu." The situation was too awkward for Fujin. While he had expected some difficulty in using high-level jutsus, he hadn't expected to fail at rank E jutsus. Fujin tried thinking about what went wrong while he rested his body. Though he thought of a few reasons, he wasn't sure which was the real reason. He sighed and decided, "There is no point in randomly speculating. I'll directly ask Guy. Though he focuses on taijutsu, it'll be weird if he never tried or considered using ninjutsu while having the inner gates open." Fujin disappeared from his training ground and arrived at the training ground where Guy trained after flickering a few times. To his surprise, Guy was training alone. Fujin raised his left eyebrow and asked, "Where are your students?" Guy was pleasantly surprised to see Fujin. The two hadn't sparred for a few weeks. He said, "I trained them a bit too much yesterday and decided to give them a day off. Though they're young, it will still take some time for their youthfulness to bloom completely. Anyway, it's good to see you again, Fujin. Did you master how to open the gate of healing?" Fujin wondered. This guy gives a day off. Those three should be in terrible shape for this monster to take pity on them. He nodded and answered, "Yeah, I managed to do it yesterday. But I am facing one issue." Guy became serious. He asked, "What issue did you face?" The 8 inner gates was a forbidden technique. Facing issues while using it could result in serious injuries. So Guy didn't dare to take it lightly. However, Fujin's answer caused a peculiar expression to appear on Guy's face. Fujin said, "I tried using ninjutsu while having the gate of opening opened. However, I failed to perform even the rank E jutsus. Is there any reason why we can't use ninjutsus along with 8 inner gates? Or do we have to use them in a different way?" Guy merely stared at Fujin. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. This was his first time facing someone who was learning a forbidden jutsu and wasn't satisfied with it even before he had actually learned it completely. He wondered aloud, "You want to use ninjutsu while using the 8 inner gates?" Fujin ignored his surprise and nodded. He answered, "Yes, our chakra surges considerably on opening the inner gates. I was planning to use that excess chakra to supercharge my jutsus." Guy shook his head and said, "That's impossible. No, that won't be correct. Even though it is possible, it will be very difficult to do so. The difficulty is so high that it can be considered impossible." Fujin asked, "Why?" Guy answered, "Your body and mind aren't used to controlling the flow of chakra in your body when the gate of opening is opened. Trying to mold chakra in that state is the same as trying to learn how to mold your chakra when you tried it for the first time. You would have required several weeks, if not months, to learn your first jutsu. If you want to use ninjutsu while using the 8 inner gates, you'll have to devote a similar amount of time to relearn your jutsus. Unfortunately, that is impossible. You can only keep the gates open for a few minutes in a day, and from the gate of healing, opening a gate has an intense backlash associated with it. So, there is no way you can have that much time to train your jutsus. Not to mention, the flow of chakra inside your body changes every time you open an inner gate. So, it is different for when you only open the gate of opening as compared to if you open the gate of opening and the gate of healing. The differences only increase as you open more inner gates. So, even if you train yourself to be able to use ninjutsu after opening the gate of opening, you won't be able to use ninjutsus when you open more inner gates. Fujin analyzed Guy's words. Guy's reasoning was one of Fujin's speculations. However, Fujin hadn't analyzed it deeply, as he had several speculations and lacked proper information to be so precise. After some time, he sighed and said, "That makes sense. I had a feeling that I was molding my chakra for the first time as well," he thought. "That sucks. I guess using ninjutsu along with 8 inner gates wouldn't be possible." Fujin looked at Guy and asked, "But why is it that we are able to use strong fist style so easily then?" Guy answered, "I already told you, the strong fist style is just training hard enough for your chakra to fuse with your body naturally. So, it is something your body does instinctively. This is amplified further when your body becomes able to function at 100% of its capability. However, you can't use ninjutsu instinctively. As you know, ninjutsu requires you to carefully and properly mold the chakra inside your body in a certain way for those jutsus to form. It is so unnatural that we have to use hand seals to guide the chakra inside our body to create the jutsus. Though opening the inner gates increases your chakra temporarily, you can only use that chakra in the rudimentary form. You can use chakra control to create attacks that improve your taijutsu. Like say using stronger punches and kicks or strengthening your body. As for ninjutsu, unless there is a jutsu that doesn't require you to mold your chakra inside your body, you won't be able to use any ninjutsu. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any such jutsu." Fujin immediately memorized his words. He thought, "A jutsu that doesn't require molding chakra inside my body. I think I might just know a few. That said, all of them are very complicated. It is difficult to say whether I would be able to use them while having inner gates opened." He replied, "All right, thanks, Guy. Can I start opening the gate of life right away, or do I need to do something before it?" Guy replied, "Your body should be strong enough to open the gate of life. However, I should warn you one thing." Fujin became serious and asked, "What is it?" Guy answered, "Opening the gate of healing and the gate of opening isn't very difficult and only depends on whether your body is strong enough. but from the gate of life. Just having a strong body isn't enough. You need the will and determination of wanting to surpass yourself and be willing to subject your body to intense pain and pressure. That is why ninjas who specialize in ninjutsu and are geniuses at it don't succeed at 8 inner gates. They have already reached the top with merely their ninjutsu skills, so they don't have the same determination as someone who depends only on taijutsu. You may fall in that category too, Fujin. Guy's words made Fujin think once again. Guy was right. Fujin had reached a very high level with the help of his speed and wind jutsus. Once the wind domain reached an appropriate level, Fujin would be even more fearsome on the battlefield. With the flying thunder god, he'd more or less become invincible on the battlefield. As such, he didn't desire the higher levels of the 8 inner gates technique as much as the likes of Guy and Lee. In a few years, Fujin would become capable of fighting against Guy even if Guy opened the 6th inner gate. With the flying thunder god, he don't even need to fear the gate of death. He could just escape and wait for Guy to die by himself. Of course, even though he didn't desire it as much as Guy, he didn't have any excuse for not learning the technique. As such, Fujin would give his all. He grinned and said, "Don't worry, Guy, I'll be opening it. Just tell me what to do." Chapter 433 A Desire to Kill. Guy grinned and gave Fujin a thumbs up. He said, "Good, I'm impressed by the power of youth in you, Fujin. The process of opening the gate of life is the same. You just have to bombard the chakra point until you can open it. The only difference is that the blockade is much stronger. It'll require a great deal of determination and will also be a painful process. The way to make this process easier is by increasing the intensity of your training by several times. So focus on doing that. You can come and find me to spar as well to push yourself more. Only when you constantly push your body beyond your limits can you open the gate of life." Fujin sighed internally and thought, "I had a feeling that just having a strong body wouldn't be sufficient. Surpassing my limits, that would have been easier to do when my body was still quite weak. It looks like opening the inner gates would be easier when the body is just barely strong enough to allow the respective inner gates to be opened. It'll be much harder for me." No wonder Lee progressed so rapidly. The body requirements for the initial 5 inner gates shouldn't be too high. From the 6th gate onwards, it will become very difficult. Oh well, even if I don't open a lot of the remaining inner gates, just this training should make my body much stronger. So there isn't any loss. Fujin nodded and said, "All right, Guy, I'll keep working towards it. I just opened the gate of opening though, so I'll find you tomorrow to spar." Guy nodded and said, "All right, get good rest and let your youth explode tomorrow." He gave Fujin his trademark grin and the thumbs up. Fujin smiled and took his leave. After returning home, Fujin wondered, a jutsu that doesn't require chakra to be manipulated carefully inside our body. Fortunately, I do know a few of them and can learn a few more. Rasenjin, Wind Domain and Wind Style Genjutsu will work by first releasing the chakra outside my body and then manipulating it. The elemental forms of Rasenjin are also the same. Does that mean that I can use those jutsus even after opening the inner gates? I need to test it out. It will be very beneficial to be able to perform them. Rasenjin will give me a very strong frontal attack. While punching and kicking is good, having an attack like Rasenjin would be more helpful, at least until I can open the last 3 inner gates. Though Rasenjin has the disadvantage of needing to slam it into the enemy, punches and kicks have the same issue as well. Not to mention, thanks to my speed buffs from opening the inner gates, there wouldn't be many ninjas who are faster than me, so that disadvantage won't matter much. Wind Domain will add variety to my attack and make me more unpredictable, and Wind Style Genjutsu can help me catch my opponent off guard. After all, who'd have time to consider Genjutsu when your opponent is opening the inner gates? Fujin began resting his body. Since he hadn't kept the gate of opening open till he reached his limit the previous time when he experimented, he didn't need to wait half a day. After a few hours, he had rested enough to open the gate of opening once again. Fujin entered his basement and opened the gate of opening. Immediately, he raised his right palm and released chakra from the chakra points on his right palm. He controlled the chakra to rotate at a very high speed. Soon, a shape similar to the Rasenjin formed. However, it wasn't a proper sphere. The chakra ball in Fujin's right hand was still very unstable. Fujin observed, my control over it isn't perfect. It looks like it will explode at any point. Still, this is far better than wind jutsus. With some practice, I should be able to use the Rasenjin while having the inner gates opened. The only question is whether it will change when I open more gates. Oh well, time to test out the wind domain. The Rasenjin dispersed. Fujin began emitting chakra into the basement. As it left his body, Fujin's chakra transformed into wind and mixed into the air in the basement. The process happened too smoothly, surprising Fujin. Fujin muttered, "This is just too smooth." Fujin immediately focused on the winds flowing in front of him. Soon, a claw made of wind appeared in front of him. It grabbed one of the pillars, and sharp winds began hitting the pillar. Fortunately, the pillar was strengthened and protected by too many seals. As such, no damage was done to the pillar. Fujin analyzed, "Not bad. Though my control is a bit unsteady, this is still very good. The important factor is that the time needed to perform the jutsus hasn't been reduced. For Narration, I need to improve my control. Whereas for the wind domain, I'm not able to form as many sharp winds as I can normally. So it is a bit less potent, but it still has the ability to do a lot of damage. After all, I only need one good slash to kill my enemy. Regardless, this is very good. It is as if the wind domain is instinctuant for me. I wonder if I can create vacuum cores as well." Considering the instability, Fujin didn't want to risk creating a vacuum core inside his mouth. He raised his right palm once again. He started creating a vacuum core to create the vacuum sphere jutsu. Though he wouldn't be able to use his own chakra to form a wind sphere around it, he could easily do so with the help of the wind domain. Unfortunately, while Fujin was attempting, the core exploded. Fujin immediately moved far away from it, thanks to having the gate of opening open. Reacting quickly and moving at a fast speed wasn't an issue for him. As such, he was unharmed. Fujin analyzed, "Too difficult. Even though a vacuum core forms outside my body, it is far more intricate and complicated than a Narration, which merely requires chakra spinning at a high speed. It looks like I won't be able to use my vacuum jutsus with the 8 inner gates technique, even if I learn how to create vacuum cores with the help of the wind domain. A shame. These two techniques together would have been very destructive." Suddenly, Fujin's chakra surged even more. He had opened the gate of healing. Immediately, another ghost palm formed in front of him. Fujin observed it carefully. Before stopping, he raised his right palm and formed another Narration. After observing it, he stopped and closed both the inner gates. His breathing became a bit heavy, but a smile could be seen on his face. He analyzed. "Good, there isn't much difference in control, be it with the first or the second gate. It looks like both these jutsus are very compatible with the 8 inner gates. This will be fun. I wonder who will be the one to force me into using this deadly combo. Regardless, I need to train more." Satisfied with his experiments, Fujin continued his training. He restarted practicing the wind domain and split his time between training it. The Flying Thunder God, physical training and sparring with Guy. The only thing that changed was that Fujin would suddenly increase the pressure from his training seal beyond what his body could bear while training to push himself further. In the next month, Fujin made rapid progress in wind domain. He also became capable of using the Narration and the wind domain seamlessly, while having the gate of opening and the gate of healing open. Unfortunately, he was stuck in other aspects, though he improved in teleporting the wind explosion sphere through the dimensional void. It hadn't reached a satisfactory level. More importantly, despite having a strong body, he couldn't open the gate of life. The lack of progress in those two aspects caused Fujin some frustration. One day, while he was eating an ikiraka with Naruto, he muttered to himself, "It feels like I am in a rut. The constant training with no action is causing me to feel some boredom. I'm missing the constant bloodshed I had engaged in earlier. It feels like my instincts are telling me to go out and kill." Chapter 434 Situation of the Uchiha Clan. "Oh boy, you should have seen the drama in my classroom when the Eraser Kiba threw hit Ino instead of Shikamaru. All hell broke loose, you know. It was H. Unable to finish his story yet again, Naruto burst into laughter. Normally, Fujin would take an interest in Naruto's pranks. However, today his mind was preoccupied with his training. He just chuckled in response and let Naruto complete his stories while eating the ramen. After some time, Naruto said, "During our recent sparring class, I managed to land a punch on Sasuke for the first time. He still beat me, but I will defeat him very soon, believe it." Naruto looked at Fujin and asked, "When do you think I can beat him, Fujin?" Fujin replied casually, "From what I hear, he's still quite stronger than you, so don't get your hopes too high anytime soon. However, if you keep training seriously, you'll be able to catch up with him and even leave him in the dust in a matter of time. So just keep training seriously. Though you have learnt 2 jutsus, you are still struggling with wind levitation jutsu during the last couple of months." Naruto had managed to learn projectile control jutsu to a sufficient level. Fujin had already taught him the next jutsu. Thanks to the training seal Fujin provided, his physique also made rapid improvements, so he was much more impressive than he was at the start of the series. That was even more true in terms of pranks. The students, teachers and normal citizens in Konoha were all getting more frustrated by the day. Despite their frustration, no one knew that the person behind this change was merely enjoying their misery while he kept training and eating delicious food. The only person who linked the dots was Hiruzen. However, since Naruto didn't trouble him, he didn't bother looking much into it. He just took precautions to ensure that Fujin didn't suddenly take an interest in Konohamaru, unlike Naruto, who tormented the village. Konohamaru focused entirely on challenging Hiruzen. As such, Hiruzen didn't want to risk facing the nightmare of a little kid with little control over jutsus, targeting him dozens of times daily. As for Fujin, he mostly just listened to Naruto describing the success of his pranks. At times, Fujin sent a shadow clone to watch and have some fun, but that was very rare due to his training. Regardless, he enjoyed the entertainment that Naruto brought in. Naruto said, "I will keep training hard, believe it." Naruto's words about Sasuke made Fujin recall some memories. In the last couple of months, Fujin had sent his clones to the new Uchiha clan compound. The fact that a few Uchihas survived was a major change to the story he recalled, while the kids who survived were unlikely to make an impact with their strength in the Fourth Great Ninja War. They could cause some changes to the future due to their influence on a critical person like Sasuke. In the original story, Sasuke was always alone. He was consumed with hatred for Itachi and didn't have anything to protect. In fact, his hatred was so great that he was willing to sacrifice his second goal. That is, to revive the Uchiha clan. However, now Sasuke was the de facto leader of a few dozen orphans who represented everything that was left of the Uchiha clan. He had a responsibility to guide them, he had a responsibility to protect them, in Fujin's opinion. That should make Sasuke far more mature than what he remembered. On the other hand, since he wasn't the only survivor, he didn't need to worry about the Uchiha clan disappearing if he died. As such, he could chase after Itachi even more recklessly, so Fujin was very interested in seeing what path Sasuke would take. Would he focus on being a good leader, or would he focus entirely on avenging his clan? It was a decision that would impact the plans that Fujin would make. To understand Sasuke better, Fujin sent his clones to check on the Uchiha clan several times. He initially intended to sneak in and check, but the security around the compound was just too good. The compound was protected by a wall, which was covered in Fiin Jutsu inscribed by a Grandmaster. 4 squads of Ambu always kept an eye on the compounds to ensure the safety of the Uchiha orphans. In addition, there were 2 Hyugas keeping an eye out for any trespassers. These 3 factors working together made it very hard for anyone to sneak in. Even when they changed their shifts, they didn't let their guard down, while Fujin could still enter sneakily and observe the Uchiha clan without anyone noticing. It would require a lot of preparation and would involve some risk, so he didn't bother and just showed up openly. He claimed that he was interested in seeing the students from the Uchiha clan, since he was a council member and had a good reputation in the village and the Ambu. No one turned him away. They allowed his clones to observe and only reported it to Hiruzen, who took no action. While he was intrigued, he didn't ask Fujin anything, as Fujin had trained and guided young kids by himself several times. If a few Uchiha kids caught Fujin's eye and he decided to train them like Naruto, Hiruzen would only be pleased. As such, Fujin was allowed to observe as much as he wanted. As he observed, Fujin noticed quite a few things. He analyzed. Though a lot of Uchiha orphans have survived the massacre, they are still very weak. I guess having this level of protection was something Itachi asked Hiruzen to do to ensure that they could grow up safely. Still, Sasuke isn't much different from what I remember. I can see that he is still consumed by the desire to kill Itachi, and though there are many Uchiha orphans, he is still aloof and only interacts with them when they approach him. Pretty much everything in the compounds is taken care of by the caretakers employed by Hiruzen. I guess his future path won't be much different. In fact, it might make even more sense for him to be willing to sacrifice his body to Orochimaru in return for his promise to kill Itachi. Still, what a shame. Even though he has so much talent and has a desire burning inside him, he doesn't train hard enough and doesn't use that hatred as fuel to grow stronger. If he did, he could rise to the level of a special Junin within a year. What a waste. That said, the blame doesn't entirely lie with him. He is already at the top of his class. In fact, no student in the academy comes close to matching him. And he has no idea how strong Itachi and the other strong ninjas are, so I guess he just doesn't see any need to train harder, and wouldn't see it unless someone from the academy challenges him or he sees how strong elite Junons can be. As Fujin recalled his analysis, he couldn't help but shake his head. He thought, despite having Naruto and Sasuke, two students who were at the peak of the world in terms of talent, Konoha didn't bother assigning anyone to train them properly and push them to become stronger. Then again, this is just because no one knows their true talent. I wonder what Hiruzen would have done had he known how strong both of them would grow in the future. Fujin and Naruto were done eating. Naruto ran out of funny stories to tell as well. Fujin looked at Naruto and said, "Naruto, I'll be out of the village for some time, so you won't see me at my house for probably a couple of weeks. Feel free to use the training ground if you want, though keep working on your training. By the time I am back, you should manage to cut the leaf entirely and do leaf concentration for 90 minutes. Naruto was curious. He said, "I will train hard, believe it. Are you going out for a mission?" Fujin nodded. Naruto had a look of curiosity and longing as he said, "I have never been out of the village. I wonder how it is outside." Fujin chuckled and responded, "Just train hard and become a strong ninja. You can then see as much of the world as you want." Naruto nodded and claimed, "I will become strong enough, believe it." Fujin chuckled and said, "I do. Now go and continue your training." Naruto immediately left. Fujin left as well. He sent a clone to inform Guy of his absence and strolled towards the mission center in the Hokage's building. Chapter 435 Return of the Bandit Exterminator. Upon entering the mission center, a familiar face appeared in front of Fujin. A face he hadn't seen for quite a few years. Shikiro looked at Fujin in surprise. He said, "I haven't seen you here in a long time. It's good to see you again. Do you need any help?" He thought, "The last time I saw him, he was only a Chunin. Now 3 years later, he has become an elite Chunin and is also a council member. What rapid progress." Fujin smiled and said, "It's good to see you again, Shikiro. I'm just bored from staying in the village and want to kill some time. Do you have any bandit elimination missions inside the Land of Fire?" Fujin's question caught Shikiro by surprise. He chuckled. "This brings back the memories of the bandit exterminators. I recall how unwilling you three used to be to accept these missions. I never thought you'd willingly ask for them." Fujin chuckled as well and replied, "I'm just bored. Thought I'd help out a bit in this regard. Just give me the missions that are located in one area. Also, give any missions that involve killing rogue ninjas in the same area. The rank of the mission doesn't matter as long as I don't have to interact with anyone." Shikiro nodded. He was aware that elite Junins would frequently go on rank S missions by themselves. He quickly took out every elimination mission that existed in the southern part of the Land of Fire. Fujin accepted the missions and went through the files one by one. He analyzed. These bandit camps target the trading route between Konoha and the lands of noodles and tea. Didn't Hiruzen create 2 camps along their borders? As Fujin read more mission files, he realized, I see, due to the establishment of those 2 camps, the trade between the 3 countries has blossomed. The land of tea and the land of noodles even took advantage of the situation and increased their trade relations, taking advantage of the safe conditions created by Konoha. The Land of Fire benefits as well due to the transit tax these 2 countries pay. However, since the trade has increased so much, it has attracted more bandits and rogue ninjas, especially from the Land of Water. No wonder the 2 camps aren't able to clear out all of the bandits and rogue ninjas. Oh well, these missions should be plenty. Though I still haven't mastered the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, it is never too early to start preparations. A mischievous smile appeared on Fujin's face. Shikiro noticed it but didn't understand. Due to Fujin's high position, he didn't ask. However, had Hiruzen seen Fujin's smile and known the fact that Fujin had experienced some success in the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, he would have understood it immediately. Fujin was someone who had covered his house with tens of thousands of seals. It took no genius to figure out what he would be doing with the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Fujin accepted all of the missions. There were a couple of rank S missions that involved a few rogue Junins. However, most of the missions were ranked C and B. Shikiro had properly arranged the missions in order so that Fujin could target them one by one on his way with the least amount of travel. Fujin stored the missions in a scroll and left the Hokage building. He lazily walked towards the gates in Konoha and left the village. On leaving, he muttered to himself, "All right, I have taken my sweet time in going to the mission center and leaving the village. Now let me see how many snakes will crawl out." Fujin didn't have a lot of expectations from the missions to provide him with a challenge. Encountering elite Junins during a Rank S mission was rare. As for Rank S ninjas, encountering them was even more unlikely. If not for an organization like Akatsuki, Fujin wouldn't have seen many Rank S ninjas either, so Fujin decided to expose his movements and bait anyone scheming against him. Be it Danzo or any enemy country who'd want to target him. On leaving the village, Fujin began moving south at a normal speed. It wasn't slow for anyone to get suspicious, nor was it fast enough to make others unable to keep up, while he jumped from branch to branch. Fujin would occasionally touch the trees he stepped on with his palm. A marking would appear wherever his palm touched, and it would disappear in a moment, leaving no trace behind. After moving some distance from the village, Fujin activated his chakra field. Fujin's chakra field spread for 5 kilometers around him. A look of surprise appeared on Fujin's face as he thought, no one is following me, or are they just keeping some distance? Fujin kept moving while occasionally leaving the flying thunder god markings on the trees. After traveling a few kilometers, he suddenly increased his chakra field to 5 kilometers. To his surprise, he still didn't sense anyone. He analyzed. It's nearly 25 kilometers away from the village, still no one. Is no one following me, or are they taking precautions by staying out of my detection range? Or are they very good at hiding their chakra? A smile formed on Fujin's face. He muttered to himself, though I couldn't complete the step of sending a jutsu through the dimensional void, my training for the flying thunder god yielded a different kind of result. He stopped activating his chakra field and closed his eyes. In an instant, a picture formed in his mind. Everything in a radius of 5 kilometers, be it on the ground, in the air or under the ground, appeared in Fujin's mind. In this picture, Fujin saw 2 disturbances behind him, which implied that there were 2 chakra signatures trailing him. Since his progress in teleporting through the dimensional void had slowed down, Fujin worked on increasing the range up to which he could sense the coordinates of his markings. In the last month, it had increased to beyond 15 kilometers. While he was training it, Fujin detected a new ability. While detecting the space coordinates of his markings, Fujin suddenly sensed some disturbances in the space that he was detecting. With the help of the space-time sensing technique, on investigating, Fujin discovered that the disturbances represented chakra signatures. It was unreliable at the start, but with training, Fujin became capable of using it to sense other chakra signatures within his range. It was different from normal sensing that required chakra fields. Since this method didn't require a chakra field, others couldn't detect that someone was sensing them. The only thing Fujin wasn't sure about was if others who have talent in space-time ninjutsu would sense it. But on experimenting with his shadow clones, he understood that they didn't sense anything. Another advantage that Fujin's new detection method had was range. Fujin could detect his markings within a radius of 15 km. Though he couldn't use this sensing ability for the entire 15 km, he could use it for 5 km, which was greater than what he could normally sense. Not to mention, it was still improving rapidly, unlike his chakra field, which was very difficult to improve further. In addition to sensing, it also gave Fujin another ability. He could feel that he was very sensitive to disturbances in space-time. So if someone else used space-time ninjutsus, they would have a hard time sneaking up on Fujin. While Fujin wasn't sure how effective it would be, it was still a happy surprise, as Fujin activated his new sensing ability, and the picture formed in his mind showed 2 disturbances in the space-time field. A smile formed on Fujin's face. He realized that his guess was accurate. He was being trailed, round 4 kilometers behind Fujin. 2 masked root ninjas were trailing Fujin. Both were very careful as they trailed him and had concentrated chakra in their eyes to observe any changes. One of them said to the other, Lord Danzo's analysis was perfect. His initial chakra field stopped at 1.5 kilometers from us, but it suddenly expanded so much. Had we been closer, he would have discovered us. The other ninja replied, yes, as Lord Danzo said, this guy is full of mysteries and his actions are very unpredictable. We have to trail him properly and collect as much information as we can. If there is some issue with him, Konoha will be in a lot of trouble considering his high post. Pay more attention. He has deactivated his chakra field. Trailing him will become more difficult. The root ninja nodded. Though they were trailing Fujin, neither was aware of the fact that they were already discovered by the person they were trailing. And thanks to the large distance between them, neither could sense what Fujin was up to. Neither of them sensed any danger as they were moving. All their attention was in the front. Since Fujin had deactivated his chakra field, their eyes couldn't see it. Hence, they didn't know how far ahead Fujin was or where he was heading. They had to trail Fujin merely from the signs he left while moving, which wasn't easy by any means. In addition, they had to ensure that they didn't get too close to Fujin and get detected if Fujin suddenly activated his chakra field. As such, neither of them could sense the vacuum blades that beheaded them from the back. They died without knowing how they were detected and who their killer was. Chapter 436. Finally mastering the technique, the bodies of the two beheaded root ninjas fell while their heads rolled on the ground. A few meters behind them, Fujin's figure appeared as he coldly watched the two dead bodies. A few minutes ago, Fujin had created a shadow clone and had it move straight forward. At the same time, he moved away from the path and hid his chakra while waiting for the ones trailing him to catch up. As a result, neither root ninja sensed him. Fujin observed the two dead bodies and thought, as I guessed, it was Root. Now did Danzo send them behind me to assassinate me or for some other purpose? Fujin couldn't be sure. Danzo wasn't as reckless as he had imagined. So Fujin knew that Danzo wouldn't make a sloppy assassination attempt. Regardless, it didn't bother him much. He stored the two dead bodies and also the blood they spilt on the ground, eliminating all evidence of them dying there. He muttered to himself, though I can't be sure yet. It is only a matter of time. I should master that technique this time. Once I do, I'll see what Danzo is up to. Fujin had inspected the area with his space-time sensing technique once again and didn't sense anyone else. He analyzed, I guess these two are the only ones chasing me. Makes sense. Even if other villages have spies in Konoha, the spies won't act by themselves. Oh well, no point in waiting for them. I should do what I intended to do. If any more enemies show up, I hope that they are more of a challenge. Fujin continued moving south. This time, his speed was much faster, and as he had planned, he left flying thunder god markings at intervals of 1 kilometer as he moved. A smile appeared on Fujin's face as the number of markings he left outside Konoha crossed 100. He thought, I'm not sure if Minato or Tsuburama did something like this. But I'll be touring all the elemental nations and leave my markings everywhere. Once that is completed, I'll tour with Kaito and leave markings in the remaining world as well. The ability to teleport anywhere in this world, hehe, as long as I stay alert and don't fall prey to a sneak attack or a strong genjutsu. No one will be able to kill me. While Fujin was moving south, Hiruzen finally received the news about Fujin accepting several missions and leaving the village. A look of surprise appeared on his face as he wondered. He left the village because he was bored. That's strange. That's the first time I have heard him complaining about being bored. It looks like he has some other intentions. But what exactly? Hiruzen thought for a bit, but he couldn't think of anything. He just let it go as he didn't think Fujin would do anything to harm Konoha. A few hours later, Danzo became a bit nervous. Despite it being several hours, he didn't receive a single report from the two root ninjas he sent after Fujin. He couldn't guess what happened to them. Fujin spent the entire day moving south while leaving thousands of markings before resting for the night. The next morning, he arrived at his first target. Fujin stood on a tree branch with the leaves covering his figure. In front of him was a bandit camp with just 5 huts. There were only 11 people in it. Fujin muttered to himself, although this place has a lot of bandits. There are no large bandit camps. Makes sense, I guess. If any bandit camp becomes too big, Konoha would deploy squads immediately to eliminate them. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I should have enough test subjects. Fujin disappeared from his spot in less than half a minute. The throat of every bandit was slit. It was a quick and painless death. Fujin gathered all the bodies together. He placed his hand on the head of one dead bandit and emitted yin chakra inside his brain. Fujin managed to read a few memories, but the brain was quickly destroyed. Fujin sighed and did the same for the remaining 10 dead bandits. Fujin managed to read a varying amount of memories from each of the bandits. Unfortunately, all the brains were destroyed. Fujin analyzed. It's been a long time since I tried to read memories. I have become a bit rusty. Still, I hope I'm able to master this technique during this trip. I have been holding on to that priest's body for years without being able to get any benefits from it. Fujin moved away from the bodies. Fire release, great fireball jutsu. He exhaled a giant fireball that engulfed all the 11 dead bodies. Fujin observed carefully as the 11 bodies were destroyed beyond recognition in the intense fire. He thought, if anyone comes across the dead bodies and inspects them, they will notice that their brains have been destroyed. It won't take a genius to figure out that someone was practicing the Yamanaka clan's secret technique. Since I'm the one who accepted the mission to hunt them down, linking it to me wouldn't be difficult. That would be troublesome. Though I can handle that trouble, it's best to not attract it at all. It's best to read the memories in secret and prepare myself while keeping my enemies in the dark. Soon, the 11 dead bodies were burnt to crisp, only their bones were left. Even if anyone found these bodies, they would think that their brain was destroyed due to the fire. Fujin placed his palm on the ground. The earth opened up and swallowed the bones before closing back. At the same time, Fujin blew away the huts as well. The ground became normal once again, showing no signs that there was a bandit camp there, and 11 people were just killed, cremated and buried there. Fujin quickly moved towards his next target. Konoha hadn't collected the exact location in the majority of the missions that were given to Fujin. They only had approximate locations due to which those missions weren't given to others yet, so Fujin had to look for a bit. Fortunately, with his space-time sensing technique, the process was quite easy. He didn't have to worry about enemy ninjas sensing his chakra field and trying to run away. However, despite the ease, Fujin didn't hurry. He took his time and focused on mastering the mind-reading technique. Over the next 2 weeks, Fujin eliminated every single bandit group and rogue ninja that the missions required. He also eliminated several other groups in the area that were still unknown but had the misfortune of getting within the range of Fujin's sensing technique. Fujin tried reading the memories of almost every person he killed. The only memories he didn't read were of the ninjas whose bodies had to be brought back to Konoha. As Fujin had guessed, none of his targets was able to put up a fight against him. Pretty much everyone was assassinated in one strike. Fortunately for Fujin, he completed his original goal. On the 9th day, Fujin managed to read all the memories of one dead ninja without destroying his brain. From that day onwards, he managed to do it several times. On the 13th day, he managed to read all the memories of every person he killed without destroying any brain. He managed to do the same on the 14th day as well. A smile appeared on Fujin's face as he read the memories of the last person he killed. He thought, great, no failures at all. I guess this technique can be considered mastered now. Should I try to read the memories of the Jashin Grand Priest? Fujin thought for a bit before shaking his head. He decided, no, I'll wait a few days and experiment more. If I don't fail even once, then I will try to read his memories. I only have one chance to read his memories properly. If I mess up, then it will be a huge loss. Besides, I'm interested in seeing who or what this Jashin is. How can rituals allow someone to control their blood or become undying? Oh well, just a few more days. I'll understand everything that the Grand Priest knew. For now, it's time to check those 2 memories. Fujin opened a scroll and made a hand seal. Immediately, the heads of the 2 root ninjas appeared. He placed his hand on one of the heads and inserted yin chakra into his brain. He muttered, now, let me see what scheme you are cooking, Danzo. Immediately, Fujin's yin chakra rushed into the dead ninja's brain. Fujin followed the same process as always and tried to read his memories. Suddenly, Fujin's eyes widened in shock. Chapter 437 Curse Seals. Several symbols appeared on the head that Fujin was holding. Fujin immediately withdrew his hand and retreated. Unfortunately, the symbols traveled through Fujin's yin chakra and appeared on Fujin's right hand. Fujin ignored the head and focused on his right hand. The yin chakra dissipated, and a layer of yang chakra appeared on Fujin's right arm and hand to stop the symbols. It stopped the symbols from proceeding any further. However, the symbols came together forming an X shape. It was a seal. Fujin frowned and wondered. A trap? A Juin jutsu. Did Danzo prepare it specially for me, or is this something that all root ninjas have? Fujin's eyes glowed as he properly observed the seal on his right hand. It was a seal that he had never seen before. However, the symbols the seal used were familiar. Fujin analyzed the seal for a couple of minutes. Immediately, several symbols appeared on Fujin's right arm and moved towards the X mark. Within a minute, the seal on his right palm was destroyed. It was as if no seal had ever appeared on his palm. Fujin muttered, to give me a feeling of danger. What a weird seal. Fujin turned his attention towards the head and observed it carefully. He realized that his brain was destroyed. He won't be able to read any memories from it. Fujin analyzed. I see, it looks like Danzo planted a seal that protects the brains of the root ninjas, so the root ninjas can neither say what they do nor let anyone else read their memories to let them know. In addition, this seal attacks anyone who tries to read memories, and the path it takes is very interesting as well. The seal is probably stimulated by foreign yin chakra and travels through it. If I hadn't stopped using yin chakra and used pure yang chakra instead, the seal would have spread all over my body. Even for me, the consequences of that could be heavy. Not to mention, the seal is quite complicated. If the one who is reading the memories isn't a Fuin Jutsu Grandmaster, he would suffer the effects of the seal. The chances of someone who is able to read memories also being a grandmaster in Fuinjutsu is very low. What a devious trap. I wonder if it is another seal, or if it is a part of the curse seal he plants on their tongue, or if Danzo has also put a second seal on the root ninjas. Now that I think of it, I should also learn the curse seal on their tongue. It should be a good inspiration for creating my own curse seal. Fujin tried observing the seals on the head. Unfortunately, there wasn't much he could observe after destroying the brain and attacking Fujin. The seal completely disappeared. Even the seal on the tongue no longer existed. Fortunately, Fujin had the head of another root ninja. Fujin stored the head back into the scroll and began studying the second head. This time, he didn't insert chakra into his brain and instead just focused on figuring out the seals. As he observed, Fujin's eyes widened in surprise. He had noticed not one but two seals on the head. He analyzed. I see, devious indeed. On the surface, every root ninja has just one seal, which is the cursed tongue eradication seal. If any root ninja tries to say something that would leak the secrets of either Root or Danto, then his or her body will be paralyzed, taking away their ability to speak or move. However, Danzo has applied a second seal in secret, a seal that is inscribed at the back of their heads and not visible to the naked eye, a seal that is so well hidden that even a grandmaster won't notice it until someone tries to read his memories. If it wasn't for the fact that I am studying a head that I beheaded and tried to read his memories, I wouldn't have noticed this seal either. I guess that the root ninjas are unaware as well. The two seals don't have anything in common and are entirely independent of each other, making the second seal hard to detect. The cursed tongue eradication seal is for stopping the root ninja from leaking out secrets, be it voluntarily or under torture. The second seal is to stop anyone from reading or influencing the mind to gain information. Still, both the seals are quite complicated. I'll need some time to study them. Unfortunately, taking them back to Konoha would be stupid. I'll have to study it now. Though I shouldn't stay in this location. Ninjas and traders travel through the path near this camp rather frequently. And I'm not sure if the seal had a backdoor for informing Danzo about anyone tampering with it. Such a seal. It would be impossible for Hiruzen to not know about it, meaning that he agrees with Danzo about this decision. Or perhaps Hiruzen was involved in creating the seal as well. I'll travel to the land of rivers and study there. If I can create a new seal, I'll meet up with Shigeki and have him expand the organization. Fujin stored the head back carefully and began moving towards the west at a fast speed. En route, he destroyed any bandit camp he came across and used the bandits as test subjects to perfect his mind-reading technique. A day later, he reached the borders with the land of rivers and infiltrated it. He found an empty cave and inscribed some seals for safety and stealth. He created several dozen shadow clones, and everyone began studying the seals properly. 4 days later, Fujin completed studying both the seals. A look of appreciation could be seen on Fujin's face. He analyzed. A Danzo, if these two seals were invented by him, then he is indeed a genius, and a terrifying one at that. I guess he only succeeded in creating such a seal due to his obsession with the root. The cursed tongue eradication seal is made of 3 parts, all serving different purposes and acting one after another to make the seal effective. The first 2 parts of the seal are for merely detecting emotions. The first one detects the ninja's intentions about divulging secrets. The second part detects the ninja's decision to put those thoughts into action. It activates the third part of the seal, which is a very potent paralysis seal, stopping the ninja from doing so. Once the seal is activated, it remains activated until Danzo decides to turn it off. So if Danzo is unaware of such a thing happening, the root ninja could stay paralyzed for life. That isn't the ingenious part though. After all, any grandmaster and even a few seal masters know how to deactivate the paralysis jutsu. At least I won't have any issues deactivating it. Unfortunately, any such attempt would just reform the cursed tongue eradication seal, and the root ninja wouldn't be able to say anything. The only way to counter this seal would be by getting rid of it entirely. Unfortunately, even that isn't possible. The seal has an imprint. Sort of like a thumb imprint or password. Only the person who knows what this imprint is will be able to lift the seal. It means that Danzo is the only one who can lift the seal. Unless my Fuinjutsu reaches an entire level beyond Danzo, I won't have any way of lifting this cursed seal. And since Danzo is already a grandmaster, it means that no one other than him can lift this seal. It is the same for the other seal as well. It has 3 parts as well, and no one can remove it. The first part is to detect any external yin chakra headed towards the brain. The yin chakra can be as I tried to read the memories, or a genjutsu which attempts to force the truth out. If it detects it, the remaining two parts get activated. The first part simply destroys the brain, making it impossible for anyone to read memories. The second part infiltrates through the external yin chakra and attacks the one trying to read the memories with a rather strong Juin jutsu. It is a paralyzing seal as well, however, it directly attacks the brain and the nervous system of the one trying to read the memories or cast a genjutsu. If that ninja gets hit by this Juin jutsu and isn't an expert in Fuin jutsu or has one such expert around, he will suffer heavily. Though it isn't life-threatening, it can reduce a ninja to a vegetative state if no help is provided in time. Such a brutal seal. No wonder Danzo is so hated by the higher-ups in other villages. The root ninjas have no morals and lack sympathy. That alone makes them a difficult opponent. To make matters worse, even if they are captured, the enemy village won't get anything from them. It is too much effort for neutralizing ninjas at elite Chunin or special Junin levels. Chapter 438 Creating and Destroying the Seals. Fujin continued analyzing. Of course, such efficiency comes only after discarding the lives of root ninjas. The second seal shows the willingness of Hiruzen and Danzo to sacrifice them without a second thought. Though it is rather brutal to sacrifice your own ninja, I can understand why Hiruzen would allow Danzo to do so. If the situation becomes that bad, then it already means that the root ninja is more or less dead. He will just be tortured until they can get all the information from him. By choosing to sacrifice his life and using that chance to counterattack the enemy will be far more reluctant in trying to capture and torture any Konoha ninja, even more so if the captured ninja is an Ambu. This way, at least the final moments of the ninjas won't be filled with torture and blaming themselves for compromising the safety of the village or their friends. Of course, the biggest reason why Hiruzen allowed Danzo to use these two seals is because Danzo doesn't have any control over these two seals other than being able to put them and release them. Unlike the Hugo clan's curse seal, these two seals don't have any features to allow Danzo to paralyze a root ninja or to destroy his brain at will. As long as the root ninja is safe and doesn't intend to divulge any information, even Danzo can't use the seal to control or torture them. He will have to depend on his other skills to do so. Only, I wonder if Danzo created the seals in such a way to ensure that Hiruzen would agree, or if there are any restrictions due to him being able to include his imprint in the seal. Even though I understand all the functions of these two seals, there are still some aspects of the seal that I am not clear on. That will need experiments to be completely clear. I also wonder if the seal can be made even more dangerous. After all, I won't be having someone like Hiruzen to restrict me. Now that I think about it, doesn't Orochimaru use his curse seal to seal a part of his soul inside them? I wonder if his seal is just the next step of the seal. That said, even if that is the case, it won't explain how Orochimaru is able to divide his soul to do so. Sigh, that guy is even more weird than Danzo. It'd be so damn helpful if I could read his memories. Unfortunately, there was no way that Fujin could think of to make that absurd thought a reality at that moment. He shifted his attention back to the head in front of him as he thought. Luckily, there are no backdoor mechanisms for Danzo to know if or when either of the seals get activated, so he should be in the dark about the fates of these two. Sadly, I can't read their memories to understand his intentions either. Well, it doesn't matter much. I already know what to expect from Danzo, but he doesn't know much about me. Even if Hiruzen gave him all my information, he still wouldn't have the right picture. Regardless, I would need to experiment. Fujin let out a sigh and muttered, "It looks like I'll have to leave the village once again in the future after I master the seal and find more bandits and rogue ninjas to experiment. Meeting Shigeki will have to be pushed back until then." He looked at the seal and thought, though I felt this issue earlier, I didn't focus on it as I was more focused on the workings of the seal. But how do we apply the seal on a person? Making a seal imprint shouldn't be an issue. I just need to create the 3 parts for both the seals and then merge them together. But how do I create an imprint in the seal such that only I can deactivate the seal? Learning how to create that and add it to curse seals will take some time. Another issue is that I have only studied that seal through the curse seal on this dead root ninja. So, I am completely in the dark about any limitations this technique might have and the theories behind it. So applying and improving this will be dependent on me. Fujin stretched his body and muttered, "Oh well, I'll work on this later. Hopefully, it shouldn't be too difficult." That said, I wonder if I can lift the seal. Fujin suddenly had an idea. He pondered it deeply. Soon the idea took root. Fujin thought, "It is difficult. Very difficult. I will probably fail. But there is no harm in experimenting. After all, this head is useless to me now. I might even get more insights about how this seal is applied. Fujin's eyes glowed as he observed the two seals once again. He analyzed. Though the two seals are independent of each other, the second seal will be triggered if anyone attempts to remove the cursed tongue eradication seal or the second seal. So, the result will be the same as when I tried to read the memories. I will ignore the cursed tongue eradication seal. If I manage to neutralize the second seal, then I can remove the cursed tongue eradication seal later. What I need to do is stop the second seal from getting triggered. How should I proceed? Fujin began analyzing his options. The seal would get triggered if it detected a foreign yin chakra, or if someone tried to remove it forcibly. After planning for a bit, Fujin began inscribing some seals on the head. His plan was to counter Juin Jutsu with Juin Jutsu. Two shadow clones appeared next to him and began helping him out. The seals he inscribed on the head were to try and stop the seal from destroying the brain. As for the attack, since Fujin wasn't using any yin chakra, he was under no threat. Fujin had already studied the seal very thoroughly, so he wasn't worried about it harming him. The head soon became covered in seals. However, since the seals hadn't posed any threat yet, the seal on the back of the root ninja's head didn't trigger. Once Fujin was ready, he controlled all the seals and attacked the seal on the back of the head. As he observed, Fujin thought, I have two main tasks to do. First, I have to stop the seal from destroying the brain. And secondly, I have to isolate the entire seal, including the imprint Danzo left. If Fujin succeeded, then even if he couldn't unseal the seal would become useless, as it wouldn't be able to do its task. It would also allow Fujin to study the seal more closely and understand all its secrets. Unfortunately, while Fujin's plans were good, they weren't good enough. Fujin managed to keep the brain safe for a few seconds and used that time to isolate the seal. Unfortunately, he failed to do so due to Danzo's imprint, and the seal managed to damage the brain. Within a few seconds, the brain was sufficiently damaged to ensure that no memories could be read from it. Fujin sighed and muttered, as I thought, this is too difficult. That imprint is pretty much buried into his head. I'll need to experiment on a lot of root ninjas to have any chance of success. But where would I find so many root ninjas? Leave it, I had sufficient gains from studying the seal. Fujin extended his palm towards the head of the root ninja. Chakra was emitted from his palm and began spinning at a high speed. It was like the Rasengan, but not the usual one. Instead of forming a sphere, the chakra engulfed the head while moving rapidly. Within a few seconds, the head was completely destroyed. The bodies of the two root ninjas were also destroyed. Danzo would never know where and how his two subordinates died. With the traces of the two root ninjas wiped out, Fujin decided, it's time to read the memories of that Grand Priest of Jeshin. Fujin removed his bracer. On his forearm was a storage seal that he had inscribed on his arm. Fujin focused on it, and a scroll popped out. It was the scroll that he had stolen from Uchiha Akihiko and kept it hidden since then. A few seconds later, the body of the dead Grand Priest of Jashin lay on top of a stone table. Chapter 439 Zankoku's Tragedy. Despite it being several years, the body of the Grand Priest was in the same condition as it was when he died. Though the Uchihas tried to study him, they didn't have sufficient time to devote resources and manpower to do so. So they took great care to maintain the state of the dead body to study it deeply after the coup. As for Fujin, he never once removed the body from the scroll to ensure that the body didn't degrade and stayed in optimal condition, having already experienced a backlash while trying to read the memories of the root ninja. Fujin didn't recklessly try to read his mind, and instead observed and studied the dead body carefully. While Danzo and Orochimaru were very weird, Jashin took the crown when it came to being the weirdest in the Naruto world. Being aware of that fact, Fujin was very careful. Fortunately or unfortunately, Fujin didn't find any seals on his body. Fujin wondered, did his body have no seal, or did the Uchiha remove any seals on him? Tough to say. Oh well, I hope that his memories are still well preserved. From what Fumito said, memories start disappearing after the person dies. If their head isn't preserved in a storage scroll, where time barely moves, then almost all their memories will dissipate in a few days, and only some important events still stay stored. But even that becomes very difficult to find. If the brain is damaged due to the passage of time, then all the memories will be lost. So I should try to learn as much from him as I can quickly. Fujin placed his palm on the Grand Priest's head, as usual. Two shadow clones kept a watch in case something unusual occurred. Fujin inserted his yin chakra into his brain and began reading his memories one by one. A long time ago, in the land of bats there existed a small hidden village. The village was called the Hidden Bat Village. It was the sole ninja village in the land of bats. The village was covered in greenery and had traditional Japanese-style houses. Despite it being day, several bats could be seen flying in the village. A young handsome man walked into the central house in the village. As he did, a few servants greeted him respectfully by bowing slightly. He smiled in response and continued on his way and entered one of the rooms. An older man looked up and noticed the young man walking in. In terms of facial features, the young man looked very similar to the old man. If the old man didn't have some wrinkles and a head full of grey hair, they would look very similar. The young man greeted respectfully, "Father." A serious look could be seen on his face. The old man nodded and asked, "Is something the matter, Sankoku?" Sankoku nodded and said, "Father, I received reports from the spies I planted in the neighboring land of eagles. They are rapidly building up their military. If we don't act soon, then we will be in grave danger." The old man sighed and muttered in a tired voice, "This again." Sankoku pressed on. "Father, according to my reports, their hidden village has promoted 6 chunins to the Junin rank. Their total number of Junins is now 28. That is twice the number of Junins we have. Not to mention, their number of Jennings and Chunnings is increasing rapidly too. Though you are stronger than any ninja in that village, we don't have any chance if a war breaks out. Let us start training our ninjas as well, and let me lead a squad to hunt their elites one by one to buy our village some time. In time, our strengths will achieve parity once again." Even though Zenkoku's words had some logic to them, his father shook his head and said, "We have experienced peace for a long time now. No war has happened for more than a decade and a half. It is unlikely that anyone would want to disrupt this peace. Taking action against the land of eagles will force them to attack us. Even if we win, your actions will spell doom for our village. As for training more ninjas, we can't divert any more resources. If we do, then the common people will have to face the pinch. A village won't be able to survive for long in that case." Senkoku wasn't convinced. He tried arguing but couldn't change the decision of his father, who was also the leader of that small hidden village. Senkoku left the house in a gloomy mood while thinking, though there are no wars, there are too many undercurrents in the world. All the villages are busy strengthening themselves. If we don't act, then our demise is set in stone. He quickly left the village and entered a cave that was some distance away. The number of bats in the cave was very high, however they didn't attack Senkoku and let him pass through after walking for a bit. Sankoku arrived in front of a person. The person in front of him was wearing a religious robe and had several strange tattoos on his body. The person asked, "Did you convince your father?" Sankoku replied, "I failed, Lord Ketsuoki. My father is as stubborn as ever. The chances of him changing his ways are very low." Ketsuochi said, "In that case, your village will be destroyed. Your only way of survival is to worship Lord Jashin and perform the ritual." Senkoku had a complex expression on his face. A struggle could be seen happening inside him. He sighed and replied, "If I perform the ritual, it will be no different than destroying the village." Ketsuochi shook his head and said, "You are wrong. You won't be killing them. You will be sacrificing them to Lord Jashin. They will merely be freed from their mortal bodies and find peace with Lord Jashin. And with the help of Lord Jashin, you can destroy anyone who has or will wrong you." Senkoku sighed once again and asked, "Is there any way to gain Lord Jashin's help without sacrificing everyone in my village?" Ketsuoki answered, "No, if you can't even make a sacrifice for Lord Jashin, then Lord Jashin won't help you. Your faith in Lord Jashin isn't enough. Leave for now. In the future, when you see the truth, come and find me." Senkoku took his leave. He had encountered Ketsuoki, who introduced himself as a bishop who worshipped Lord Jashin. Sankoku was immediately captivated by Jashin and accepted Ketsuoki's teachings. However, he was unwilling to perform the ritual as it needed a lot of sacrifices from the people who were close to him. Not to mention, even if he wanted to, he could not do so. His father was much stronger than him. In addition, there were 3-4 more ninjas who were stronger than Sankoku, so sacrificing all of them wasn't something he could accomplish by himself. Life continued as usual for the people in the land of bats, and 3 years passed. However, the rest of the world slowly became uneasy. Several hidden conflicts happened on a daily basis. The major as well as the minor villages began preparing for a war. The land of bats was unable to stay separated from this conflict. Sankoku's father began preparing for war too late. As a result, the hidden bat village was attacked by the hidden eagle village. The attack was swift. The hidden bat village was almost entirely annihilated. Rivers of blood flowed inside the village. Only a few Junins had managed to hold on, but they were outnumbered as well. In one such battle, Sankoku was facing 3 enemies' Junins. His body was riddled with injuries and he was on his last legs. Just when one of the enemies was about to land the killing blow, a figure appeared on the battlefield and killed all 3 Junins in a perfect sneak attack. He quickly grabbed Sankoku and disappeared from the battlefield. Not long after, everyone else in the village was killed, and the hidden Bat Village became one of the many villages that disappeared in the long river of history. Chapter 440 Jashin's Ritual. In a cave close to the former village, Bishop Ketsuoki healed Sankoku. Sankoku's condition was very bad and he needed a couple of days to even be able to move. As soon as he could, he got up and informed Ketsuoki, "I'm heading back to my village." Ketsuoki replied remorsefully, "Your village is no more. The battle was over in a few minutes after you fell. If I hadn't rescued you, then you would have been dead as well. The ninjas from the Hidden Eagle village have already retreated, leaving behind a few ninjas to watch over your village." Ketsuoki's words shocked Sankoku. While he knew what the result would be, his heart didn't want to accept it. The village had his parents, his siblings, his lover, the friends he grew up with and trusted his back to, and everyone else whom he saw on a daily basis. Losing them all at the same time was a huge blow to him. Ketsuoki allowed Sankoku to mourn his loss in silence for a while. When he noticed that Sankoku had accepted the reality, he said, "Lord Jashin had warned me about the calamity that would befall your village 5 years ago. It is fate. Nothing would change that. Lord Jashin could only give you an opportunity to act first and strengthen yourself to take revenge on the ones who would destroy you. Unfortunately, you didn't accept the ritual." Sankoku looked at Ketsuoki. Hatred, determination, and a strong will were visible in his eyes. He asked, "Will Lord Jashin allow me to complete the ritual now?" Ketsuoki answered, "As long as you have faith in Lord Jashin and are willing to follow his teachings, you can." Sankoku replied, "I have faith in Lord Jashin and I am willing to follow his teachings." Ketsuoki replied, "Good. Unfortunately, everyone in your village is dead. All your family and clan members who shared your blood are no more. Fortunately, it hasn't been too long since then. The ritual can still happen. However, it will require even more sacrifice." Sankoku replied, "It doesn't matter who or how many need to be sacrificed. I am willing. Everyone I know and cherish is already dead. I am willing to sacrifice the entire world, if I need to." Ketsuoki nodded in approval and said good. He extended his hand towards Sankoku and healed all his injuries. Surprising Sankoku once again, Sankoku returned to his optimal condition. Ketsuoki began walking out of the cave and said, "Follow me." Ketsuoki and Sankoku walked back to the hidden Bat Village. The village only had 1 Junin and 8 Chunnings watching over it. Ketsuoki said, "Though your clan is dead, their blood still flows on the street. So does the blood of the ones who killed them. Go kill all your enemies in this village, then collect as much blood from the streets as you can, and collect the hearts of every dead person who was related to you." Sankoku immediately got into action. Though the village had 9 enemy ninjas, none of them could take on Sankoku by themselves. To make matters worse, they weren't gathered together. Sankoku killed them all in no time without Ketsuoki needing to take action. He followed it up by ripping the hearts out of every dead person from his clan whose bodies still littered the streets. He even collected the blood that was flowing on the streets, which for some reason hadn't dried, solidified or seeped into the ground, though Sankoku noticed the anomaly. He was too consumed by grief and rage to analyze it rationally and just considered it as the will of Lord Jashin. The process of collecting as much as he could took half a day. He approached Ketsuoki and handed him the scrolls he used to store what he collected. Ketsuoki observed it and said, "Good work, this should be sufficient. However, this can't be considered as a sacrifice as they are already dead. You will need to sacrifice 800 alive people to Lord Jashin to prove your faith and gain his recognition. After destroying this village, the forces of the Hidden Eagle village moved through the country to conquer it properly. The common citizens in other small villages didn't take a second to switch their allegiance. You should sacrifice them to Lord Jashin." Sankoku nodded and agreed. Over the next couple of weeks, Sankoku and Ketsuoki visited small villages spread over the country. Ketsuoki cast a genjutsu on them and guided them to a massive hidden cave that he had prepared for the purpose of conducting a ritual. They ended up gathering over 1,000. Sankoku also eliminated any ninjas from the Hidden Eagle village that he came across. After gathering all the sacrifices, Ketsuoki got to work. Sankoku waited in the cave patiently. He noticed a high number of symbols and seals inscribed everywhere in the cave. The spot of the ritual was already marked. For the first time, Sankoku also met a few other followers of Jashin who served Ketsuoki. Sankoku observed what Ketsuoki was doing and noticed him inscribing a few seals and markings on every person they had kidnapped. Sankoku didn't know much about seals and didn't identify any seal or symbol that was used by Ketsuoki. Ketsuoki needed another week to complete the preparation. In a large formation that covered a huge portion of the cave, Ketsuoki arranged the kidnapped people who were still under genjutsu, the hearts of the people related to Zankoku, and the mixture of the blood of the people related to Zankoku and the blood of the people who killed them. During this time, Ketsuoki also explained the process of the ritual to Zankoku and informed him what he needed to do during it. The process left Ketsuoki visibly exhausted. Sankoku wondered whether Ketsuoki had aged by several years in the last week. Ketsuoki approached Sankoku and said, "The preparations are complete. The rest will depend on you. We will conduct the ritual on the next full moon." Sankoku nodded. He desperately wanted the power to avenge his village and to serve Lord Jashin, so he had no intention of messing up the only thing that would immediately make him stronger. He waited patiently while meditating and worshipping Lord Jashin. On the night of the full moon, Sankoku moved to the center of the cave. The center of the cave had a large circular room with a dome-like ceiling. There were 8 narrow pathways connected to the room. Several symbols and seals were drawn from those pathways to the room. At the center of the room was a small circular pool that contained blood that Sankoku had collected earlier. If one looked closely, then numerous hearts could be seen at the bottom of this pool. A narrow canal came in from each of the 8 pathways connecting to the room and joined the pool. However, those canals were empty for the time being. Following Ketsuoki's instructions, Sankoku walked into the pool and sat at its center. He closed his eyes and began meditating, his mind only having thoughts about Lord Jashin and gaining strength. Meanwhile, Ketsuoki started the ritual. Sankoku was instructed to only focus on meditation and to not get distracted even for a second. Ketsuoki activated all the symbols in the room immediately. A glow appeared in the room due to the seals shining. At the same time, several seals on Sankoku's body were activated as well. Sankoku immediately felt a surge in chakra. At the same time, his body felt intense pressure, while his mind became very restless. He gritted his teeth and recalled the bloody state of his village. He continued meditating and believing in Lord Jashin. Slowly, the hearts in the bloody pool began burning up. The blood in the pool began flowing towards the seals on Zankoku's body. On the other side of the 8 narrow pathways surrounding the room were 8 rooms. Each had 100 ordinary people. The seals on their bodies began glowing as well. Suddenly, they felt an intense pain. The pain was so high that they snapped out of the genjutsu they were under. Unfortunately, they couldn't do anything. They all screamed in pain as blood was being sucked out of their bodies. Their screams could be heard in the central room where Zankoku was meditating. However, he paid no attention to them and just gritted his teeth. The pain he experienced was far more intense than any of the 800 screaming civilians. The blood extracted from their bodies began moving through the canals connecting to the blood pool. Soon, their blood flowed into the pool as well. Under Ketsuoki's control, all the blood began flowing into Zankoku's body with the help of seals he had inscribed on Zankoku's body. Despite the intense pain, Zankoku hung on.